Hello and welcome to the 2018 Digital Transformation Summit. Today's event is brought to you by Actual Tech Media. The IT Virtual Summit Series is special here at Actual Tech Media because we only do these a few times a year, and we bring in an expert keynote presenter, and we give away a lot more prizes than the normal event, and usually we have many more presenters than our normal events. And today's event is no different. It's going to be really awesome. We have joining us today, Unitrends, Nutanix, Datacore, Wasabi, Pure Storage with Veeam, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and Tentry. Now, on this summit event, we've asked our presenters to discuss specifically how their solution can help to bring digital transformation, can help to provide greater efficiency in the IT organization, greater business agility for your company, and potentially some cost savings. My name is David Davis, and I'm a partner at Actual Tech Media. I'm honored to be the moderator for today's event. I'm a 10-time VMware vExpert, and I've been in the industry writing, blogging, and speaking now for many years. And I'm also a former system administrator and IT manager myself. So I've seen what really innovative solutions can do for the enterprise, and that's why I'm really passionate about what we're going to be seeing here today on the Digital Transformation Summit. So the goal of these events is to help educate the world of IT professionals about the most innovative enterprise-grade technology solutions available to you today, to help you to learn as much as possible, to get all your questions answered, and do it in one online virtual event quickly and efficiently, and without you ever having to leave your home or your office. And while you're learning, maybe you have a chance to win some very cool prizes, and today's event has some really cool prizes lined up. We'll talk about those in just a minute. But before we kick off the Digital Transformation Summit, there's a few things that you need to know. You'll be hearing from 7 of the hottest companies in this enterprise technology space today. Each presenter will speak for roughly 20 minutes, followed by a 3 to 5 minute live Q&A session where I'll ask questions from you, our audience. So we encourage you to use the questions box there on your console as much as you'd like. Whatever comes to your mind about the presentations, go ahead, ask it, and I will be selecting the best questions for the live Q&A sessions, and we'll be getting as many of those questions answered as we can during the event time window today. We get hundreds of questions, and we really encourage questions because, as I said, we want this to be a really educational event. This is not a competition between any of the presenters. There's no winner selected here today. The Digital Transformation Summit is educational for you, the audience of IT professionals. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into a little bit of housekeeping. The first thing you need to know is that we've got 6 DJI Phantom Pro 4 drones to give away. These are really cool. I wish I had one of these myself. And we also have 7 Amazon $500 gift cards. I'll be covering the prize requirements in just a moment. You also need to know that, as I said, use that questions box to ask us questions. We'll be answering all those questions, as many as we can, and I'll also be asking you, the audience, questions as well. We want to hear from you. We want your feedback about the event. And so we've got a number of poll questions throughout the event to learn more about you, learn more about your needs related to digital transformation. And I'll share the results of many of those poll questions with you so you can see what your peers are doing. I also encourage you to be social about the event. The hashtag for the event today is DT Summit, for Digital Transformation Summit. So we encourage you to promote the event over on Twitter. And in fact, you can do that directly from your console right there using the Twitter icon. If you click on that, the first time it will prompt you for your Twitter username and password. And after that, you can tweet from the console, and the hashtag for the event will be automatically appended. Also, we've got some great resources on the console there, a number of different resources, one from each of the different presenters today that they've hand-selected. I've seen the resources, and they're really good. So I encourage you to download those, share those with friends and colleagues. Now, as I mentioned, we've got 6 of these really awesome. These are like professional drones, as well as 7 Amazon $500 gift cards. So we'll be giving these prizes out throughout the event in between the different presenters today. Now, to be eligible to win the prizes, to be eligible for the prize drawings, I should say, you must be on the live event, and there are some specific legal requirements, and there's a link on your console that you can click on to read more about the terms and conditions for being eligible, and also if you win a prize, the IRS W-9 form that is required for the grand prizes. Now, on the events that we do at Actual Tech Media, we've given away thousands of dollars to charities over the years, and for anyone who wins a prize, we encourage them to donate that prize value to charity if they'd like to do so, and we will help you do that. These are the charities that we support through these events, and if you'd like to donate your prize value to charity, then we would be glad to help you do so. All right, social media on the event. Today's hashtag, as I said, is DT Summit, and I am David M. Davis. You can follow me on Twitter, and the event is brought to you by Actual Tech Media. You can follow us on Twitter as well, and I'll be tweeting about the event. I'll be talking with folks over on Twitter, so if you want to join the conversation over there, please join us. Please do so. I also want to point out that we've got some other channels that you can subscribe to from Actual Tech Media. We've got a YouTube channel. We've got a Facebook channel. We also have 10 on Tech, a podcast over in iTunes. You can subscribe to that. We interview some of the most innovative technology entrepreneurs in the world today, and it's all about enterprise technology. So if you haven't seen the podcast or listened to the podcast, go ahead and check it out over in iTunes. I also want to mention, before we go much further, that you can maximize or drag your presentation window on your console to make it larger, and I encourage you to do that right now. I also want to mention, before we start today's keynote, that this is a totally live event. Things can and do sometimes go wrong, hopefully not today. But if you have any sort of trouble with your console, maybe the audio or video, try a refresh on your browser, and 99% of the time that will solve any sort of technical problems. If you have problems after that, feel free to put those in the questions box there, and we'll do our best to help you. But hopefully everything goes smooth as silk today. And with that, we are going to kick it off with today's keynote. In this keynote presentation, Actual Tech Media's CEO, Scott Delo, interviews the CIO of Birch Family Services out of New York City. And the CIO that Scott interviews, his name is Brian Solardo. And it's a very interesting presentation about digital transformation. So I hope that you enjoy our first keynote of the event today. Here we go.
We're at Tech Unplugged, where I'm joined by Brian Solardo, who is with Birch Family Services. He is the CIO. Brian, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome, Scott.
And I apologize for a little noise in the room. We're at a show, so we're going to have some background noise.
It's a great show.
So tell us about Birch Family Services.
So Birch Family Services is a nonprofit organization that provides education for kids on the spectrum, the autism spectrum, from preschool through school age and up through high school and some college level. And we also provide residential services for individuals with developmental disabilities. They've been in business since the late 70s, been in business a long time, and have grown. They started as an education business first and have developed the residential side of the business. And we're about a $65 million company, and we continue to grow, which is exciting. And we're looking forward to continuing that growth.
Now, as a CIO, obviously, when we start thinking about things like digital transformation, that means some very specific things, and it means really changing business as usual. When you first joined Birch, what were some of the things you noticed that needed to be changed, and what have you started to do to address that in a way to enable the business towards a more, transformational stance?
So, in my experience, I've worked in various industries in my career over the 30 years I've been doing this, and I've noticed that oftentimes when I walk into an environment that is very technical and is managed by technical people, that they tend to employ or deploy point technology solutions to solve specific problems versus perhaps thinking about a bigger picture and how to look at process efficiency use technologies they already have more effectively through training or just exploiting the technology, but unfortunately, oftentimes that's not the case.
Do you think that mentality where we have IT being led by very technical people has sort of led to this divide that we've seen in history between IT and the business to a point?
I do. My goal in my career has been to empower users through the use of technology and try to make them as self-sufficient as absolutely possible, obviously with the support of an IT organization where necessary. My goal at Birch is to continue to drive that more and more, empower the end users, empower them to own and even in some degrees administer their business process management services and software, because we are moving most of our applications into the cloud in SaaS-based environments. So that's my goal. I have a very lean shop. I have a very lean team. We manage 30 sites across New York City, and it's really challenging when we have to administer accounts and security and permissions for all these unique software applications.
You know, as you've undertaken this project, this initiative, how have the users received it, and how do you see it changing operations over time to the benefit of the business?
So I will say that initially, as with any change, end users are normally not so receptive. That being said, I normally try to obviously get buy-in from all of the senior level people in the company to, define the strategy, provide a perspective that's positive and empowering for everybody, and then move quickly to make those changes occur through a lot of communications and a lot of training, and work through that transition. So it's working. I would say that from an initial standpoint, they weren't overly receptive, but through my persistence, which is me, I'm just a persistent guy. They've really accepted these changes, and they're really running with it now. So it's great.
How's it impacting the business? Like, are you seeing a different set of outcomes than you were seeing before, or is it changing how people do their jobs?
Yeah. So one of the key outcomes is the speed with which they can solve problems, and the speed with which they can make changes to the system to support changes with their personnel, changes with their processes, etc. So they're no longer having to make a call into the help desk. We queue it up based on a priority. We make the changes, and then we alert them that the changes are done. Now they have identified key people in their specific departments that are savvy and can do that work right within the department when the changes are happening in a more real-time perspective. So that's been the biggest opportunity for that scenario.
How has your staff reacted to this? I mean, how is it impacting their work and their careers?
Well, that's another great perspective. Is primarily they don't feel like they're stuck working on systems that don't interest them, because they're business systems. They're business systems that support a particular portion of the business, whether they're financial or managing the school scheduling or managing the residential part of the business scheduling or learning management systems. We have a lot of systems. So now they're able to focus on, as technologists, we all want to learn about technology, right? So we're moving to Azure, we're moving to Office 365, we're talking about SD-WAN technologies. A lot of security-based things we have to consider now with phishing awareness and securing firewalls and securing our infrastructure. And those are the things that make technology people excited about working with technology. So that's my goal. My goal is to mentor them and move them towards supporting the actual technology and thinking smart about the way we use the technology and deploy the technology, and not, administering my LMS system.
Or Exchange or something.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
One of the things I think about with digital transformation and impact on IT careers is really akin to what you just mentioned, is IT's been dragged down to be the mechanics of the organization in a lot of ways, and and we shouldn't be. Really, we're doing the work that end users are really better at in a lot of cases, and it's an opportunity for IT then to focus on what it's good at, and everybody lifts when that happens.
Yes, and that's a really good way to describe it. I have people who are working for me now who I hired at junior levels, and a lot of these kids, I suppose they're kids.
Yeah.
They're young guys and girls and gals, and they're feeling empowered to make strategic changes.
It's good for them.
They're thinking about security in a very open-minded way, and they're thinking about ways of making the team more efficient through standards and working with vendors to make vendors more efficient the way they deliver technology to us, pre-imaged, and so they're really stepping up.
What confluence of events, products, and services do you think has come together to enable digital transformation today?
Well, I would say currently in this environment, really it's been the ability for us to move hardware out of the building and into the cloud. That's our biggest opportunity for my current situation. So hosted voice, hosted apps. We're looking at hosted firewall and interconnectivity services with SD-WAN. Hosted data storage. Hosted email. The list is pretty broad, but really, in essence, as we sort of alluded to earlier, is I'm going to be left with a couple of servers that are going to do, DHCP and and
print server.
And a print server, exactly. So we've got a lot of cloud stuff so really the challenge for me is making sure we've got enough bandwidth, right? And we've got redundancy built in. So we've got some failover solutions in place for when stuff breaks.
Very good. Brian, this was a great conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Really excellent interview there that Scott from Actual Tech Media did with Brian from Birch Family Services, a real CIO out in the field who's implementing digital transformation at his company. So thank you to Brian for volunteering to be on the event today and interview and speak from the Tech Unplugged conference where that interview was taken just last week. And so with that, we are about to start the event. First, we have a few poll questions for you. I know it's going to be a really good event because we have so many great presenters today. I know that you will find answers and solutions to all of your digital transformation challenges. Before we jump into it, a couple quick poll questions. The first one is a simple question, should be, how many people work at your company? And you can answer these poll questions just right in the slide window that's on your screen. You may need to scroll down if the window isn't large enough to see all of the answers. And if it isn't large enough, I encourage you to just click maximize on the window. And that way, all the poll questions will be visible. And also if or when the presenters today show live video or if they do some architectural diagrams, you'll be able to see those very clearly. All right, so hopefully you have had a chance to answer that poll question. I'm going to share the results with you right now. And let's take a look at this. So we've got some small companies being represented on the event today. 9% are 1 to 25 employees. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule to join us. 18% are medium-sized companies, I guess I would say, 100 to 500 employees. 13% are 1,000 to 2,500, and it goes all the way up to companies that are 5,000 to 999. Some very large companies, 26% being represented on the event today. So thank you very much for answering that. And then I've got another question here, and this is kind of a unique poll question that we're doing just on this event, and I'll actually ask it a couple more times during the event for people who join us a little bit later. Before you answer, let me tell you what the purpose of this poll question is. So at Actual Tech Media, we have a very large audience of over 500,000 IT professionals around the world. And what we're looking for are some people to participate in a new service that we're currently planning. It's not a job, but it's an opportunity to participate in what we do every day, which is meeting with the world's leading enterprise IT vendors and lending your experience, your knowledge somehow. So the service calls for us to recruit up to 10 people from our audience to travel with us for a week, and most likely to California, at our expense, of course. We can't talk too much about the service itself, but we can tell you that we're looking for CIOs and IT professionals who have a broad understanding of IT to spend some time with us and our clients. It's a highly selective process, and we'll be interviewing people to identify those that we feel would be most able to contribute and fully participate during the process, and we'll be able to provide more details on what we're doing at that point. But at this point, we're just wanting to know who out there in the audience today would be interested. We really want to involve members of our audience that are strategic thinkers and who are good at sharing their stories and opinions in a constructive way. The selection process will include asking people to fill out a short survey about their background, followed by 1 or 2 phone calls. And then the group, what we're calling envoys, will be provided with an all-expense-paid trip to our chosen location, most likely California. Of course, we'll have some expectations of you once you get there related to this service that we are creating. So we're looking for people who want to share their opinions about making the IT buying process more positive and more effective. So that's what the question is about on the screen right there. And so I'll give you a moment there to answer the question. I see someone posted in the questions box that they're in. They're sharing their interest in the Envoy program. We appreciate that, but please answer the question in the slide box, and that way it'll be recorded in our poll question system, and then we'll get back to you with that survey as the first step. All right, so if you haven't answered the question on the screen, please do so, because we are moving on now and kicking off our event. I'm now excited to introduce Mr. Dick Sappler. He is a product marketing manager at Unitrends. Thanks for joining us on the summit today, Dick.
Great,
take it away.
Thanks a lot. Glad to be here. Okay, so Unitrends is a maker of backup and recovery software, and I look forward to get into this. So I listened to the previous speaker with great interest. My job before joining Unitrends in their product marketing department was that I was an analyst, an IT analyst for Aberdeen Group for about 4 years, and I have about 30 years of experience in IT. And I've watched this trend in transformation, which is basically the fragmentation of IT, for many years. And I have learned several things as I've watched what's going on here. Just because someone has a computer and a credit card doesn't necessarily make them an IT professional. As the previous speaker said, in technical organizations, this tends to be when divisions go out and contract for their own IT services. But that's the easy part. We all know that data and applications have life cycles, and that data is a corporate asset. It's not a divisional asset. And so while it's really easy to sign up for an application, what's really hard is the downstream activity, which is to back up the data and also to prepare for disaster recovery as a service and make sure those applications are up and operating. So, and generally businesses that contract with their own applications don't think about the long-term aspects of the life cycle of the data. So you have data that is in use right now. You have backup copies that run back number of months or even years. And then you have the whole archiving aspect as well, where there are life cycles to the data. Some data must be kept for 7 years, for example, tax data. Other data has to be kept in perpetuity. And so there are data retention schedules and all that have to be managed and understood. So it is still IT's responsibility for data protection, for compliance reporting, and for business continuity. And so just because a division goes out and buys their own applications doesn't mean that they're doing the entire job. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is that downtime is incredibly expensive. We as an industry have coalesced around about $9,000 per minute. Obviously, that varies depending upon the size of your organization, the type of applications that may be down. You know, if it's the employee reimbursement system, yeah, obviously it's not 9,000 a minute. But if it's the email system and the entire organization is no longer functioning, then that's incredibly expensive. And so we think that if an application is up, say, 3 nines, 99.9% of the time, that still equates to about 44 minutes of downtime per month, or costing the company about $400,000. If you were able to make that 4 nines and knock that down to 4 minutes of downtime, you literally have saved your company $400,000 per month. So that gives you an idea here of the magnitude of the impact, and therefore the budget that you should be allocating for DR, backup, and recovery services. And there was some talk, obviously the previous speaker talked about SaaS applications, but SaaS has a shared responsibility model. And this is the model that's used by Microsoft for Office 365. Microsoft is responsible for system backup, the application, the operating system, the servers, obviously the networking, storage, that sort of thing. But it is the customer who's responsible for protecting the actual applications that run in that SaaS environment. So Microsoft, they'll stay with the Office 365 example, they provide rudimentary capabilities. They provide a wastebasket so that you can go in and get the data out of the wastebasket and so forth. But if that wastebasket is emptied every 14 or 30 days, depending on what your settings are, once that wastebasket is emptied, that data is lost forever. And so end users may think that that because they're getting a SaaS type environment that they are protected, and that is not necessarily the case. And the other point I want to make is that backups are no longer just for data backup and recovery. They're actually corporate assets that are used for many other things. A good recovery system has a capability called service copy data management, which allows you to take your backups and actually boot up a test environment so that you can do software testing, so you can do what-if analysis and so forth. If you don't have the access to those backups, then you obviously lose that functionality. Also, backups are now, you can get systems that scan the backups for ransomware. This is what Unitrends does. Every backup scans for ransomware and compares this backup with the previous backup to see if there's been any encryption capability. So there's security aspects of this. There's compliance. So HIPAA, for example, if you're in a healthcare environment, requires that you not only have a backup program, but that it is tested regularly. And when you have a HIPAA audit, they require to see that those backups have actually, those tests have been performed and what the RTO and RPO results actually are. That is the functionality of IT. That is a corporate governance responsibility. And if the applications are all parsed out to divisions, that's very difficult to do. So, and there's also productivity aspects to this as well. So just to support that that SaaS data is at risk, here are the main losses as reported by Microsoft for SaaS data losses. You can see that literally third-party software, user error, and all this. So the SaaS data must be protected. So what I'm going to basically suggest that IT does as part of this transformation process is that they should be offering a recovery as a service model to the divisions that think that they can do it better. It is hard to compete with the lines of business. They have the money. IT tends to be an expense center that's constantly looking to be cut, whereas the lines of business are profit generators and therefore are given more free rein to do what they want. But IT should not abrogate their responsibility to protect the corporate assets, and we should be offering recovery services to those divisions, spelling out exactly where they're at risk and what we can do to protect. And so I'm going to basically take the rest of this presentation to talk about protection services that are available to you in IT for your divisional deployed solutions. So first, you need to sit down and think about what are the success factors and how are you going to sell this to your divisions. You need to understand the user needs. There are also multiple protection strategies that you can bring to the table, which I'll outline in a few minutes, that you can show them and offer as a solution to this problem. You obviously want to keep the expenses low so that the compute costs are not impacting on the savings that are generated by divisions going out and doing their own thing. You also need to think about protecting the applications and keeping them up rather than just protecting the data, because it's not just about backup anymore. Backups is table stakes. It's all about recovery. So we are Unitrends, and we offer a full suite of solutions, applications, hardware appliances, software appliances to protect corporate data. And so you can see a simple little cartoon here of all the different deployment strategies that organizations take. And Unitrends has a solution for each of these sorts of deployment practices. So at the very bottom, you see we have hardware appliances that would sit in the data centers of the corporations, and they can replicate data back and forth between sites for some geographic distribution. We can also support data replication and recovery in hyperscale clouds such as Amazon AWS, and Microsoft Azure. We also have our own Unitrends cloud, which I'll speak about in greater detail. But we support all of these sorts of deployments. So regardless of where your data, where your applications reside, we can protect them with a geographically dispersed strategy. So the most likely scenario that your divisions are doing is they have deployed their applications in hyperscale clouds such as Azure or AWS. We offer Unitrends Backup. This is a software-based appliance. It has all the capabilities that our hardware-based appliances do. And we actually sell this appliance in both the Microsoft and AWS stores. And what you can do is you can take that appliance, buy it at Microsoft and AWS, and deploy it in the same cloud where the applications are being run. This then allows the backups to occur within the cloud. We take incremental backups of the data that's running on the cloud-based applications, and we can replicate those down to your on-premises appliances or to another cloud, to another Unitrends Backup appliance in the same cloud, meaning AWS or Azure, or to another cloud if you're very concerned about, Azure entirely going down, for example. So this is a very simple backup strategy that can be done for applications that are running in hyperscale clouds. It gives you all of the flexibility, all of to protect the applications, do disaster recovery, bring those applications back up on premises if you need to, and do the data archiving and replication that you need. The other thing you remember we spoke about a little bit is about Office 365 and the need to back up that data, protect that data. Mail data, OneDrive, SharePoint, those have become critical applications to bring the applications up and to keep them protected. A malicious employee, for example, can literally go into his Office 365 account, delete all of his mail into the mailbox, and then empty the mailbox. And literally that data is gone forever. So unless it's been replicated but with an Office 365 backup application, then you can't recover it. So we offer spanning backup for Office 365. It's $4 per month per user, and it basically backs up. It makes daily backups of Exchange, OneDrive, and SharePoint. It does all emails, attachments, calendars, contacts, and then that you can use, the end users can use a simple interface to go into their backups and recover lost emails, or an admin can do it, and they can do it at a department level, at a group level, and so forth. There's also the ability to cross-recover, meaning that if an employee is terminated, then to have critical emails recovered to another user's account. So this helps the divisions in protecting the data that's incorporated in Office 365. But sometimes a smarter solution is to use a purpose-built disaster recovery cloud, such as Unitrends Cloud. This is a cloud that we own. We protect about 100 petabytes of customer data in it right now, and we basically support disaster recovery as a service and archiving. Our cloud is different from the hyperscale clouds. We don't make a distinction between a storage cloud and a recovery cloud. Our data is stored and kept warm. The same data that's used for backups can also be archived. And so you're not actually spending a lot of money based on migrating data from a storage cloud to a recovery cloud in the case that you need it for disaster recovery as a service. So just a couple of features. Since we are the people that actually run the cloud and manage the backups and the warm copies, we actually can offer service level agreements. We also offer what is called white glove services. We are the ones who are the experts in how to do this cloud backup. We also automate the testing, so you can literally have automated tests, compliance reporting that are good enough to pass HIPAA audits, and we are much less expensive than hyperscale clouds. So just a slide on each of these. SLAs. A service level agreement means that we will pay you if we do not hit our service level offering. So our premium SLA is that we will have your applications up and running in our cloud within 1 hour. The cost is about $2,500 per VM for a full year, and that comes with automated weekly testing, so that literally every week an email will show up in your box showing the test. And for a test, what we do is we actually bring up the application and run it. We'll tell you the RPO, the RTO of that test, and whether it met the requirements that you have set forward. We also offer Elite. It's $1,500 per VM. That has a 24-hour SLA and monthly testing. And then finally, we offered our standard DRAS. This is based and sold by 500 gig increments. So it's $529 per 500 gigs for a full year, and we bring up all the other applications on a best effort basis. So you can have disaster recovery as a service very easily with no extra requirements on your IT people. So when you sign up for this service, we literally sit down with you. We triage your applications, which one need premium, which ones need elite, which one can be done with standard. We set the boot order of the servers. We offer cloud seeding so that you can get the data into the cloud much more quickly. But the point is that we are the cloud backup and recovery experts. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to take part of your IT resources to learn the latest versions from Azure and AWS. You declare disaster entirely with just a single phone call to us, and then we bring the applications up in the cloud and through VPN redirect your users to your applications running in the cloud. So if you were to try to do that with AWS, let's say there's been a fire in your data center and you lose your internet access, then you lose your ability to do the disaster recovery, to bring that all up within Azure and AWS. The scheduling, the testing, as I told you, is that we bring up the applications in full. We run the applications. We don't just show you a splash screen and say the application's good, because if you're infected with ransomware, obviously the application will boot, but it will not run because the data is corrupted. We'll send you those actual reports. Here's a sample of the report. It actually shows you what has been tested, which applications, the RPO, the RTO times, and this compliance report is good enough to actually give to HIPAA auditors to prove that not only do you have a DR program that is tested and that you're within the parameters that you have set forth in your HIPAA compliance plan. So we have many hospitals, literally thousands of hospitals and doctors' offices that use this report. We also, for financial institutions and for insurance companies and so forth, this is very good. And we are so sure that our offering is cost effective that we have actually created a cloud cost calculator. It's on our website. I've got the link right there. You can go in and you can put in the stored volumes, the number of recoveries you think you may have, how much data needs to be recovered, and we will actually cost out for you the differences in price between Unitrends Cloud and the clouds used for AWS or Azure. The other point is that if you do have a disaster, you can run your applications in our cloud for up to 30 days at no additional charge. So that literally, if your data center is destroyed, you have a 30-day window, grace period, with no charges to your company to run your infrastructure and get your data center back in order. We did just Safety Products Incorporated down in Florida. That was in the path of Hurricane Irma. They called up and declared a proactive disaster, meaning that they knew 3 days in advance the hurricane was going to pass right over them. We spun up their entire infrastructure in our cloud, and we just waited until the data center went down before we invoked the VPN and flipped all the users over. Fortunately, their data center did not go down, but that's just an example of the sort of thing you can do with a purpose-built DRaaS cloud. So again, just in summation, what I'm advocating is that you do not abrogate your responsibility to protect the corporate data. That is corporate asset, it's not a divisional asset, and a way of keeping yourself in the game is to offer recovery as a service. You can do this also for security as a service, for example, things that divisional users may not be as focused on as you, the IT professional. So a couple of assets for you. We have the 5-minute health check on our website. Take 5 minutes, answer a series of questions, and we can give you an evaluation, show you how you compare to your peers as far as your ability to survive from a disaster. We can also do demos of any of the products that we talked about today, as well as talk to our continuity experts. Okay, and with that, I will pass this over back to our host, and I believe this is a Q&A session.
Excellent presentation. Yes, thank you, Dick. We do have a number of questions here coming in from the audience during your presentation. So while I ask you those questions, let me go ahead and bring up this poll question that's on the screen. It says, do you want to be one of the first to hear about Unitrends? And I'll just leave that up there while we do our Q&A. So let's see. First question that came in is about seeding for disaster recovery. How is that done? They're asking if it's done with a private connection or can it be done over their current internet connection?
Yes. So this is entirely dependent upon the volume. If you have, say, in the neighborhood of 10 terabytes or above, it can take quite a while trying to do this over a WAN. So we do have physical seeding capabilities. We can take tape, a drive, even a full server. You can run it in your data center, get all the data on top of it, and then ship it overnight to us at our cost up to our data center, where we can then in 24 hours have it ready and then just do an incremental backup from there. We can also then use this same technology to restore your data center if there was such a disaster, so that we can take a server, put the data on it, ship it to you, put it in your data center, and therefore recover you in the event that it's more than 10 terabytes. But you can do this over the WAN. We have data compression, dedupe, WAN acceleration technologies that work with the cloud.
Okay, nice, nice. Another question that came in, they're asking about encryption. Do you offer encryption? And if so, is there any configuration around that, like what types or what level?
Yes, encryption is included in all of our appliance products. And you can turn it on, turn it off. You can encrypt the data at rest. In flight, you can store the data in our cloud encrypted depending on your level of security. And it is standard industry encryption that we offer.
Okay, Nice. Another question here, they're asking about ransomware. When it comes to testing for ransomware, can Unitrends help to ensure that the backups, let's say, aren't infected with ransomware? And if so, exactly how do you do that?
Right. So we offer, all of our appliances include artificial intelligence software that scans for ransomware activity every backup. And so what we do is we understand the impact that ransomware makes on a file, the level of changes, and so our software learns the change rates of your files. Let's say you were doing incremental backups every 2 hours. We recognize that a file change is only 5%. But then all of a sudden, if a file is changing at the 80% level over a 2-hour period, that may be part of your business cycle. You know, it could be the end of the month and your financial data is being updated and so forth. But the AI will recognize that. But if it's an odd pattern, then we will flag it as a suspected with ransomware. We will send an alert to an administrator, either through email or a notice on the dashboard. And we will flag and I put an icon on that backup in the archives so that you don't try to recover using that file that you may be just replicating ransomware. So we literally test for ransomware every backup, every file.
Very nice. I like that. Let's see, another question they're asking, is Unitrends hardware or software, and how's it licensed?
Okay, so we have both hardware and software appliances. The hardware appliances are physical devices, and they're licensed. We do not charge licenses for particular hypervisors or servers or applications. We have about 250 hypervisors, applications, pieces of software that are on our compatibility matrix. But the device is it's licensed at the device level. So you buy a new application, you don't have to tell us and put it on the backup. We don't track that or keep track, require you to. Our software Unitrends Backup Appliance, is licensed by Socket, and again, no licenses for particular applications or hypervisors.
Very nice, very nice. And tell us a little bit about when someone is interested in Unitrends. How do they know? Should they choose a hardware appliance or software? And if so, which appliance how do they select the proper appliance size?
Okay, so you would size the appliance based upon the amount of data that you want to protect. So if you're a very large company, our physical hardware appliances will protect up to 120 terabytes of data. And that provides a platform then for the applications to run if the server goes down, for example. There's instant failover of the application, so and then you can run the application on the recovery device until the server is replaced or repaired. If you have your own hardware and software, you have lots of storage on a SAN, then a software-based appliance with all the same capabilities, the ransomware protection, the dedupe, the encryption, and all. You can run it on your own hardware. You can make a hardware device be a client to a software device at a remote location, or vice versa. You can have a device at every single location you have, and then use one interface in one location to manage them all, so you don't have to have IT resources distributed around the location.
Very nice, very nice. Well, I think that's all the time we have for live Q&A, but there's a lot of really good technical questions still there waiting for you, Dick. Thank you for being on the event today.
Great, thank you. Been a pleasure.
For more information on Unitrends, of course, check out their website, unitrends.com. Also check out the Unitrends resource that's on your console. And if you have a question for Unitrends, feel free to enter it now, and Dick will be following up with these questions here in just a moment. If you haven't answered the poll question on the screen, please do so now, because I'm going to announce our first winner of an Amazon $500 gift card. And let's see, this is going to Luke Jones from Arkansas. Congratulations, Luke. We'll reach out to you to deliver your Amazon $500 gift card. So we've got a lot of drones. We've got a lot more gift cards to give away. Stay tuned for those. And with that, we are going to move on to our next presentation. And now I'm excited to introduce Mr. Greg White. He is a Solutions Marketing Principal for Enterprise Applications and Big Data at Nutanix. Take it away, Greg.
Thanks so much. Excited to be here and excited to share thinking around digital transformation and how to help ensure success when it comes to that. And some of the things that we see out there that you should be able to take advantage of. So as you look across different industries, you're going to continue to see this digital transformation occurring. I mean, you see it in retail where it comes across from different ways of communicating with consumers, different ways of reaching them, having them find information in new ways, and lots of different areas where you see this change occurring. And it's not just in retail, it's also occurring across entertainment and media, and increasingly digital delivery, as well as preferences across the audiences. Having the infrastructure to be able to reach them and handle this change is something that a lot of companies are looking for and asking about. And it extends on to manufacturing as well. As you look at supply chains, you look at understanding product changes and trends and incorporating new technology into these products and then also into education and government as they change really how they deliver services to their constituents and how people consume them and what they're looking for and the speed, all of that all factors in even into areas in education and government. So many of you are well aware of this. You're seeing this, really want to focus on how that's happening across lots and lots of different verticals and industries and organizations and even into government and nonprofit and education. And as you can see, that digital transformation's been kind of occurring over time. You started to see software defined emerge in the early 2000s and web scale kind of approaches, and the addition of really the public cloud is a whole new type of consumption model out there. A real continued evolution as you look into how people experience products and the focus that's put into it, and what is the end user experience, what is the IT experience, how does that occur? And you think about things like the iPhone, you don't really care what where your data is being stored. You know that when you click your iCloud backup, there's a lot of things going on in the background that you're not have to manage and be a part of. And so that seamless experience, that ability to add new capabilities very easily is transferred into other products and areas as well. And we'll talk about that some more later. But that continued evolution of that is a big part of digital transformation. And as we continue to look out into recent time, into the future, things like containers and Internet of Things and distributed computing all around, and AI and security all factor in as well. And those are going to be some of these kind of new technologies and new ways that are going to be seeing and looking at digital transformation. But there's this real chasm here from an IT perspective of how you get from what organizations have been used to when it comes to that security, being able to have the governance, the regulation, having things that are very structured in the way they've been done in the past and the way they're used to this new modern approach that leverages kind of all the best things that have come out of these recent innovations, like you see at the top, from consumption models to that delighting from a business perspective, that being able to be really agile, really being able to manage and look at cost in a different way, instead of this idea of I used to stand up, monolithic infrastructures to run applications that were very hard to change and required a lot of upfront commitment. All of those things of evolved. The public cloud has provided a different way of doing that. It doesn't address everything on each side, doesn't address everything. So how do you cross the chasm and bring those two things together? And that's part of the digital transformation journey. And complexity is really one of those things that is creating the biggest pain and challenge when it comes to making that crossing. Like, how are you going to do that, and what are you going to adapt? How will you adapt to make it happen? We've been talking for some time about how computing is evolving and IT organizations are not, and we've seen that infrastructure change and some of the driving forces for this transformation as you think about how IT and computing have changed, and IT needs to keep up with that and needs to think about new ways of doing it. Some of the driving forces for this transformation are things around hardware, like being able to have smaller form factors and do more with, the same size as Moore's Law and chips. And so being able to do more with what you've got, being able to take things like commodity hardware and use that software-defined approach we talked about a minute ago. Of course, the internet changing things, but creating new challenges. And so what ultimately matters the most is that customer delight piece, leveraging these to provide that, and learning and building and figuring out how to take advantage of them. Things like open source and crowdsourced software, this consumer grade approach where things are just really easy to do, and as if any kind of consumer could go and provision the resources needed to run an application and then play with that and be really fast and agile to market. Being able to have that capability at your fingertips, being able to access resources to leverage applications and provide new services. That's a big part of, this kind of state of the union. What are the new things that are changing, and old technologies that are providing new ways of doing things. So, mobility's been around for a while, but it continues to evolve and provide new opportunities. You've got end users that are increasingly impatient and looking for faster, quicker capabilities. And so looking across all of this, let's just kind of wrap up this idea of these trends and how that can play into digital transformation. You've got operating systems, the idea of software defined and hardware agnostic into how you're going to make that digital transformation occur. You've got that ability to provide those capabilities in a cloud-like way, whether that's through a public cloud, private cloud, but it's at your fingers. It's at that cloud-like agility. And of course, as we provide more ways to access and use these, it needs to be more secure. You need to be able to access them kind of from wherever you want to. So, and it doesn't really matter where the compute, storage, application resources are occurring. They're always on, and it's kind of seamless on the back end, like that example of the iPhone, and not really caring about kind of the back end piece of it, just knowing that it all works. You click a button and it's taken care of. And so that's often kind of thought about as this increasingly invisible infrastructure. So this idea that I've got the resources I need, they're agile, I can adapt them and bring them up when I want, but it doesn't require me to manage a lot on the back end or have to have a lot of knowledge of that. So what are some of the things that are holding IT back from making these kind of changes? There's a real change in the pattern of cost. It's not just upfront cost anymore. There's an increasing consideration of what's that ongoing piece of it. If you think about an invisible infrastructure, is that something that should change kind of the cost approach? How do we handle these applications and data as they change how and where they're being run? That's a big part of it. Having the skills and proficiency to do all this, especially as you look at some of the new technologies that we highlighted there, the areas within different verticals and areas, use cases, that kind of thing. There are new skills that are required, and that can often be a barrier for a lot of organizations, and really need to kind of overcome. All this sort of adds up to this fear of the unknown, and this idea of what's my risk if I try and go and make a sort of a real monumental change into the way I'm going to leverage IT for digital transformation within my organization. There's a lot of fear and doubt to overcome, and just understand the risk so that you can take the right kind of steps to move down the path and alleviate some of this, so that you have a better way of going about doing it. And so this is a graphic from a paper that IDC did that talked about digital transformation, leveraging cloud computing, and how to go about taking those steps. And you can see the title there at the bottom. But what they really talked about were providing some kind of concrete things that you can go out and look at. I'm not going to walk through every single step here, but wanted to just kind of highlight, as you look at what are some of the things that you can do, actionable, take out of this to really think about making this IT transformation. And this paper's got a lot of detail into it. They talk about that digital transformation and cloud computing, when they get combined with the implementation of next generation applications, next generation infrastructure, those are the kind of catalysts for transformation in today's IT environment. So it can be challenging, but they talk about advising technology leaders and organizations that you can make this journey and be positioned for the next decade of IT. It's not just about maintaining the status quo. You need to be able to create opportunity that's going to help set you aside from your competitors, and provide alternatives that can help disrupt your business. And these steps in this transformation are a way of doing that. IT leaders that are successful recognize that change is underway, and they're looking at ways to embrace a roadmap or a way to help evolve their IT transformation, to modernize their infrastructure, and really to right-size their investments so that they can prepare for the future. And so as you think about digital transformation, here are some of the things that can help you move along that. You need to understand that full application portfolio, understand how to modernize the infrastructures that run those applications, and what to do with each application, and what infrastructure to run it on. As you define that stack, you can figure out, this application is really hard to move to a new kind of infrastructure, so maybe I keep it there until I'm ready to end of life the application. I may have applications that are easy. I could put into a container and put into a different kind of infrastructure, or they run on just a different kind of virtualization platform or a different OS. There are options within the software. You have different, obviously, lots of a whole suite of options that are there, but understanding how you can use your different infrastructures, different clouds, whether that's private or public or hybrid, or kind of legacy, kind of in place, physical and virtual, that aren't really a full private cloud yet, but that's the way they've got to stay for now. But be a part of this overall approach, and really develop that strategy for your infrastructure and your platforms, how you're going to leverage those for new applications and the new kind of capabilities that are out there, like we talked about earlier, from open source software and options like that, new cloud native applications. Understand those investments that you've got in your organization, and develop that methodology of how you're going to leverage software and applications in your organization, not just now, but as you move forward, so that if somebody comes to you and wants to deploy a new application around BI to help them be faster responding to consumer needs, you have a framework of how and where that application would want to and need to live for. But over time, that may change. You may say, I want to deploy this in the public cloud for a month while I test it out, figure it out, but I know ultimately I'm going to run it 24/7, and I will have better use of resources if I move that back into my on-prem data center once I'm ready for that. And so hopefully this is of value. If you think you can leverage that report and do some more digging on it, I want to kind of take the next step and go a little deeper into just thinking about the infrastructure piece when it comes to digital transformation. And cloud has really reset our expectations for that. A lot of it I've talked about already, this idea of being able to be fast to market, being agile, being able to grow a little bit at a time, so you don't have to make that huge upfront investment. You can fractionally grow as your needs and are proven out, and you're understanding exactly what is required, and or as you add more customers, if you add more data, that being able to fractionally grow and understand that, and even shrink, when needed. That's all an expectation now that cloud is provided into not just the public private piece, but private piece and hybrid. Being able to do this all with the simplicity of one click or easy consumer grade approach that we spent some time talking about a few minutes ago. And then being able to continuously innovate and adapt. And, if you think about the public cloud, they add a new feature, they just roll it out and then you have it. A lot of times in the past with infrastructure choices, you make them and 3 years from now, you'll get to add something new or change something. And that slows down that digital transformation in business. You get back to that idea of computing is evolving, but IT is not. And this is a way to overcome that challenge in the past, is being able to have access to continuous innovation. But there's not just a single cloud anymore. I know public cloud is something that people talk a lot about and are looking for ways to leverage several different options in there. Often this is really best suited for scalable and elastic workloads. So things that are changing a lot, you turn off, have limited lifespans, or require specific capabilities maybe that you don't need to invest in for the long term. There are applications that are built specifically for the cloud natively. You pair that with, what's been around this idea of, we went from a data center to virtualization to now a private cloud, which is often very good for having those capabilities near the source or near the compute or near the resource, because they're latency sensitive, they're performance sensitive, mission critical applications, things where you can't have that you've got to have that quick response and back and forth that sometimes the public cloud's not going to enable you to be able to do. And often when you talk, I mentioned a few minutes ago, this idea of being predictable, being able to look out to what you're going to be doing for a while, right? And then there's a distributed cloud out at the edge. There's places where computing needs to be close to the source and you don't have access to a data center or the public cloud. There are challenges in delivering this experience because you have different technology stacks across these. You're not always able to move the applications. There's fragmented management. Each one kind of can be different. Each different public cloud has a different, interface and way to manage, and different consumption models. And so what really is needed to be able to provide that digital transformation, that IT transformation that's going to allow that, is this idea of being able to have this cloud OS that goes across the different clouds and has a single unified scalable management plane. And so from Nutanix perspective, we started several years ago with this idea of hyperconverged infrastructure, which is taking that layer of server and data protection and storage and virtualization and tying them all together in a software-defined approach, really easy management, putting them software-defined into a single scalable building block, leveraging commodity hardware, leveraging different x86 platforms, and then layering on different capabilities that come with that, like one-click operations, the ability to upgrade software with one click, to be able to add more capacity with one click. We've added in networking and even application automation and management across these different clouds. And so can go into all of this more. I'd encourage you to learn more about Nutanix, but it's this idea of taking these different capabilities, putting them all together in a software-defined approach. So you've got a full management suite, a completely different kind of way to architect your infrastructure. This works across lots of different use cases and workloads. So whether those are some of those cloud-native ones, those traditional business-critical applications, remote offices in the edge, as well as private cloud, that all plays. Nutanix can be that building block for enabling that from a transformation perspective. We've continued to build this across the companies and countries. Leading companies are using us. From a Gartner Magic Quadrant perspective, I encourage you to read that. You can see where we're positioned in the latest Gartner Magic Quadrant for hyperconverged infrastructure. And we've been able to prove that this provides a lot of value compared to this old way of doing things. As you move through, digital transformation is all about also being able to understand where you can add value and provide value from the IT perspective and understand the TCO ROI piece of that. I encourage you to read this IDC paper that talks about where Nutanix has been able to deliver that value. And a big part of it is the customer success and their involvement with our support and their satisfaction. We have extremely high customer satisfaction scores and net promoter score over 90, which is really unheard of. And finally, as I wrap up, Nutanix can be delivered in a multiple different kinds of ways. It's not just on-prem. It's flexing to the cloud. It's choice across hypervisor. It's choice across consumption model and cloud. So you're able to provide that from Nutanix built appliances on up through our partners with all the leading hardware manufacturers and interactions into the leading cloud platform. There's a great case study, I know I'm out of time, that I encourage you to read that talks about this manufacturing company that leveraged Nutanix to make their transformation and really able to improve their application performance, being able to be more agile, and enhance really change their cost model. So I think we've got time for questions. I encourage you to go online and learn more about us. Welcome any questions, and thanks so much for
Great presentation, Greg. Are you with us in the call?
I sure am. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for being on. So, let's see, first question that came in here, they're asking about digital transformation out at the edge. Is that even possible? And if so, is it hard to do or not so hard?
Yeah, as you look, some of the challenges that we find at the edge are, having the right people, having space for equipment, for infrastructure, having security. Those are the things that can make it hard. It is possible and increasingly new approaches to how you do that. I mean, sometimes the public cloud is an option, new form factors. Some of the things that we do from a Nutanix standpoint is really shrink footprint for infrastructure and reduce the amount of capacity you need and resources, so you can have just like one or two nodes in a site and easily managed from afar, so you overcome some of the challenges on site, and having built-in security. Some of those things are all helpful when it comes to being able to do compute at the edge. And sometimes you need that or digital transformation at the edge. Sometimes you need that compute there locally as part of that, which kind of can take the public cloud out. So like I talked about earlier, having knowing where you want to run your workloads applies even at the edge. But yeah.
Okay, excellent. See, another question here that came in, they're asking, does Nutanix support role-based access control for administrators and any sort of backup and recovery options? I guess it's a two-part question.
Yeah. Yes. Yes to both. So yes on role-based access, and we have a self-service portal where you can allow users to create VMs, use them in different ways, restore them, that sort of thing, and have different sets of privileges. And so that's one aspect of it. From a backup and recovery standpoint, yeah, there's a whole suite of options from snapshots, being able to replicate snapshots to a remote array. You can do all sorts of different types of replication from asynchronous, in the hour kind of RPO and RPO kind of time frame, to near synchronous, which would be minutes, to metro availability, which would be synchronous. And so different options across there, snapshots built in, being able to send the snaps to other locations and leverage that to send back up to the cloud too.
Excellent. Another question here they're asking about is, does Nutanix run workloads in the public cloud?
Good question. So we do not run the actual workload in the cloud as if it were on the Nutanix operating system, enterprise cloud operating system. That you'd run workloads on Nutanix, but we recently acquired a company called Calm that is application deployment, and it has built-in capabilities to deploy applications onto AWS, Azure, and soon Google cloud infrastructure platforms and manage the life cycle of those. So it'll deploy the VM to your specific blueprint and specifications, and then you can also turn it off and manage it that way, have control over it. So that's all built in. So it really does become that kind of bridging between my on-premise infrastructure, my cloud infrastructure, leveraging Calm and that application management to create that true hybrid cloud.
Okay, nice. And for those up in the audience, I want to call your attention to the poll question on the screen. I'll just leave that up. The question is, how many people work in your IT department? So let's see, Greg, a couple more questions here. Another one is, do you support Hyper-V and vSphere hypervisors? And what options do you have for moving virtual machines to and from hypervisors?
Yes, we support multiple hypervisors, vSphere, Hyper-V. We have our own built-in native hypervisor that we call AHV. It's included with Nutanix in no extra cost. We support Citrix Zen Server. And then we have what's called Extract, Xtract, and that's a tool that helps you convert VMs into Nutanix, into specifically AHV, but also within the Prism interface, you can seamlessly convert VMs between vSphere and AHV. And then often we'll have customers that say I'm doing Hyper-V, I'll stand up my Nutanix cluster, I'll take where I'm moving those VMs from and move them over, in a vMotion kind of way, or use a backup. There are different ways to move VMs over to Nutanix, depending on the hypervisor capabilities and some of the unique things I've mentioned kind of between different hypervisors. But our goal is to be able to support multiple hypervisors and make it as easy as possible to leverage them.
Okay. And then another question here is about when someone goes through digital transformation, if they're trying to move in that direction, to you, does that mean putting applications in the public cloud, or can those applications still stay on premises?
Yeah, absolutely. I think digital transformation is the infrastructure you use is just one piece of it. New applications, how you're using them, how agile they are, how fast you can adapt. Those are all aspects of digital transformation as well. Where you run them is a critical part of that, and it does not mean it has to be in the public cloud. We have a lot of customers that stay on-prem, a lot of customers that are doing both, looking at where that workload runs best. If it's something that's going to run for 1 day a week and do a reporting that you use to then help better drive your business, maybe that's something that's good to run in the public cloud because you're going to turn it on and turn it off and not use it again. But maybe also if you have spare capacity, you may be able to do that on premise as well. So it doesn't require the public cloud. That's another option that's come to the fold over the last few years, and being able to work between those two really will help enable your being able to do both. At some point could help, reach your goals depending on what they are.
Okay. All right. Well, excellent. Well, we've got a lot more questions there still for you in the queue, but I think that's all the time we have for the live Q&A. Thanks for being on the Digital Transformation Summit today.
Thanks so much, and I'll go in and answer the questions in the queue for the people that haven't been answered yet. So you'll get something that's coming there in the next couple minutes. So thanks so much for having me.
Excellent. Excellent. For more information on Nutanix, visit their website, Nutanix.com. Also check out the resource that's available for download right there from Nutanix on your console. This is the Nutanix Enterprise Cloud Solutions Pocketbook. You might check that one out. All right, and with that, we're going to move on, and I'm going to share you the results of this poll question. You can see it says, how many people work in your IT department? And the winner on this was more than 100 people at 24.6%, and actually it's tied with 2 to 5 people at 24.6% as well. So thank you everyone who answered that question. Now is the time where we're going to give away our first DJI Phantom Pro 4 drone and an Amazon $500 gift card. And let's see, the first winner of the drone is Steve Goncalves, Goncalves from Colorado. Congratulations to Steve. And the second Amazon $500 gift card we're giving away today is going to Eric Arajuo, Araujo from Georgia. Congratulations, Eric, and congratulations, Steve. For those who didn't win, we've got a lot more prizes to give away on the event today, so stay tuned for that. And with that, I'm excited to introduce our next presenter on today's Digital Transformation Summit. That is Paul Nashawati. He is the Director of Product Marketing at DataCore Software. Here we go.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me today. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Paul Nashawati. I'm the Director of Product Marketing at DataCore. And I'm here today to talk to you about powering digital transformation and software-defined storage initiatives. This is an incredibly exciting time in the industry. We're really excited to be here talking to you about this because this is an area that we know that it's important for your businesses to run and succeed and move forward, but it's also important for you to align what you're currently doing today and then take your business along this journey as you go through this process. So let's get started into this and talk through it. So one of the biggest challenges that we know with digital transformation is, businesses are struggling every day, okay? They're struggling with their heritage environments, their legacy environments, but they also know that they have to modernize, right? And the key is modernization is critical to the success of the future of the business. It's truly that if you don't modernize, your business will die, okay? And case in point is what we're seeing in the market today. Look at Toys R Us, one of the largest toy retailers for a number of years. They struggled. They really struggled because when their customers were looking at doing online purchasing, Toys R Us looked at that and said, okay, well, we can do it toysrus.com, but their e-commerce, they sent it to Amazon. And by sending it to Amazon, what they ended up doing was the customer left the Toys R Us website after doing the research and then went to Amazon to do the purchase. But what happened on Amazon, there was a lower price from a different vendor, and that customer was lost forever to Toys R Us. And that customer ended up moving on to something else, which really was the beginning of the end for the Toys R Us, the big toy giant. So, that's an example of a business that really struggled to modernize, struggled to get in front of where they were going and how they were moving forward. And when we look at this, this is not unique to Toys R Us. 60 companies of the Fortune 500 from 1955 are still around. That means 440 companies are gone from that Fortune 500 list. And, that could be mergers and acquisitions, that could be just going out of business, et cetera, but that's a huge impact to your business. And, this is not something that companies need to take lightly. And frankly, they're not, because when CEOs are challenged with this question, they're asked specifically, what happens with digital transformation? What does it mean to their business? And out of these statistics that show here, 40% of CEOs recognize that digital transformation is one of their top initiatives. It needs to be, right, in order to stay relevant. But yet they're falling behind in their efforts, because the challenge with digital transformation is there's a big push to have an innovative way to access information, to access data, to access your systems of record and systems of engagement. And that big push to do so is putting resource constraints and both physical resources, compute, hardware, et cetera, but also people resource constraints. So the whole element of people, process, and technology all come into play with digital transformation. But yet, these CEOs and these companies and these business lines are realizing that if they fail to act, they're putting their business at risk. And clearly we've seen that recently. So the challenge that a lot of these systems of record have in these systems of engagement is the data is the key. Data is the lifeline of the business. The systems in place are useless without the back-end data that supports them. And access to that information is incredibly important and incredibly critical in order to succeed. But yet, businesses today are accessing this information with their heritage systems, which gives them very little time to access with their new innovative systems. 80% of IT budgets are spent on maintaining and general maintenance of their heritage environment. 80%. So that means it leaves 20% for innovation. And when you're looking at 20% of innovation, the access to this information, so when you're looking at customers accessing this data, your company lines of businesses accessing this information, they're all accessing it from various systems, and that causes delay to response to the end user, and the customer journey gets impacted by this. So when we're looking at systems of innovation or systems of engagement, these are new systems or new applications that are coming online that access the previous systems of record. So the systems of record are data sources that continue to run the business and operate the business, but then the systems of engagement access that information in a new way. Basically, this is providing a customer journey across an omni-channel experience. So if somebody's using a website or a mobile device or an application, everything from the front-end systems to the back-end systems all dovetails nicely together, and there's a common set of data that's spread across all of these different interfaces, which is incredibly important for the customer journey. So when we look at the results, we know that modernization is key to digital transformation, and we know that it's significant to the data center. So when we look at the data center needs to be viewed very differently than it historically has been, meaning that the data center historically was a collection of resources used for independent projects and business lines. And those resources were allocated and charged to those business lines, and then basically operating as mini data centers within the data center. That's inefficient, and that's just not really the best way to run your business, because, again, when we look at the spend of 80% of budgets going to your heritage environment, that 80% of budget, it can be leveraged and used more efficiently. When we look at the data center as a computer itself, the data center then becomes the way to do encapsulation of resources. You can ebb and flow and provision those resources as needed, right? So when we look at this, we also have to take into consideration data. Data is growing exponentially. data the growth of data is incredibly robust, and it's just growing over and over, as we can see in the slide here. So that means that ways of doing business needs to change, right? So having we'll just take an example of data protection of backup. If we look at backup in the modern age, historically you used to be able to do a backup over a window of time where you copy the data set to another source and you have a backup of true second source of information. Well, nowadays we're talking about such large data sets that cannot be managed and not be moved. So we truly have to have a backup without a backup. And what that means is you always have to have your information on. You always have to have real-time copies of your data for your real-time business. So your business will continue to run and your business will operate irrespective of an outage in a site, in a resource, in a silo. There's additional copies of that's always on and synchronously up to date, so your business continues to run appropriately. And we can do this by truly providing a data on demand strategy. And that data on demand strategy allows you to virtualize your storage resources or your data resources, virtualize those hardware technologies, and provide a platform that allows you to have an agnostic approach that harmonizes the performance characteristics as well as the access characteristics of the data, so it can be available to your lines of business during ebbs and flows in your workload, in your work production. So if you need additional resources that may be, high performance flash storage, for example, or if you have archival needs for compliance reasons where you need to store your data for a period of time, you can do that within the storage infrastructure across multiple storage systems in an agnostic way. So that allows you to use the platform more efficiently and really truly treat the resources in the infrastructure as one unit across the entire data center. We see this across these disruptors are being talked about across the analyst community. We know that these disruptors are challenging businesses today with, operational time, recovery time objectives, et cetera. And all these things that we definitely need to show indicates that businesses are driving towards an on-time business. But, when we look at business and we look at digital transformation, it doesn't have to be so disruptive. And what that means is if you transparently provide resources in a platform, regardless of those resources. So, whatever that may be, in the case of storage, if you need to provision additional resources for storage, you can do so without it impacting your environment and also without it impacting your budget. So if you have that 20% of budget allocated for innovation, well, now that 20% of budget can grow because you're maximizing the use of your IT investment by leveraging the resources you already have in your infrastructure and then allocating those and encapsulating those so it doesn't impact the rest of your environment. So your developers can build a system of engagement on your existing systems of record. And then, this is something that, when we look at it, one of the fears that CEOs we surveyed and we understood is when they don't want to get started on digital initiatives because they're worried about this rip and replace model where they have to pull a bunch of resources out of their environment, add new resources in, and that's truly cumbersome and costly, and it also creates silos inside your data center. Not the best approach to delivering a true digital transformation initiative. And with software-defined storage, the way DataCore does it is we provide storage platform for your traditional storage to virtualize it, your converged infrastructures, your hyper-converged infrastructures, your cloud-based resources, all using a unified platform that manages the storage across the entire data infrastructure. So that's on-premise as well as in the cloud. So it's incredibly important to be able to use a solution that allows you to adjust, provision, deprovision during ebbs and flows of your lines of business operations. So this is incredibly important because if the transparent movement of resources is available, then you end up having an enhanced customer experience, and you end up having virtualization that can really be managed and integrated across your infrastructure using different technologies, regardless where it may live. So, we see this in the market. We see the market is just, coming up to speed. Software-defined infrastructure is mainstream now. And with software-defined storage, we're looking at it, as a true mainstream way to approach your environment. But yet, we also do it differently than the competition. And different doesn't mean wrong. It just means it's done. The approach is different because the approach we think is more optimal and more accommodating across your phased approach in your digital transformation journey. So when you're looking at your digital transformation journey, you may enter in at any number of phases along that journey, where software-defined storage, and the way we approach it, we provide you that those resources as needed. So you can see that there's a definite growth in the market today using the software-defined infrastructure. And some other benefits to just looking at it, if accessing your information, again, using your heritage systems, but also allowing your systems of engagement to access this information is important. You can rapid application or connectivity is incredibly important for users as well. And then management across the infrastructure, as I mentioned, you want to harmonize that infrastructure management so you don't have to worry about different platforms or different things to access. But then you have to look at it with the cost savings in mind, because when you purchase equipment for projects, that equipment gets purchased and then it may not get fully utilized. So this gives you the ability to utilize the resources you've already purchased and then allocate those resources across your infrastructure, producing an increased productivity and a better user experience, not only for your end users, but your developers as well, and your lines of business. And then an easy way to do the development, testing, and updating and scaling, because you can now encapsulate the environment using technologies like containers, using Docker or Kubernetes to provide persistent storage into the container, really start focusing on that allocation for those digital initiatives you're building in those systems of engagement. So the other thing to consider is really looking at your infrastructure so you can provide that high performance IT demand, and taking a true data first approach to providing that storage, that information. The information is the lifeline. So your existing systems of record have to be accessed by your new systems of engagement, and those systems of engagement are the way your business is going to innovate. And if you use your existing systems of record, then your new systems of engagement can be modified and changed because they can be developed in resources you already have available that you're not using today. And as an example, I referenced hyperconverged here, and hyperconverged is a way to encapsulate a specific environment. But again, what we're doing is we allow the management of the hyperconverged storage across the infrastructure, but still isolating that compute, this hypervisor, the networking, all within a single platform for that management of that resource. And when we look at the advantages of a nonstop business, a nonstop environment, that having access to the data requires basically zero downtime and zero touchback and failover. So if there's ever a failure, what you don't want to do is have to wait for that recovery time. And with having copies of data in multiple locations, you have the ability to point users to the other location, allowing them to seamlessly access your information as needed. And this provides you that way to run your business with this basically transparent to your access, regardless if there's an outage, whether it's a natural disaster, a man-made disaster, or a security breach, or whatever it may be. You have continuous access to your information and applications. And then, when we're looking at ways to do this from really in the nuts and bolts of it, on-premise, you might have an instance of your software-defined storage solution on one storage vendor, and then in the cloud, you may have another storage vendor and then you have a stretched cluster that goes across both of these. So that's really one of the examples. And then when we look at it, the DataCore software-defined storage solution provides availability, performance, efficiency, and management across all the applications, across the deployment models that are in there, whether they're attached to virtualized hosts or physical hosts. This can be in the cloud, in a SAN, on a hyperconverged environment. And then the foundations that we provide for that data center is the ability to provide that availability, the performance, the efficiency and management, as well as reporting back. So when we do the availability, your access to data and your digital initiatives is always available, always on, and always ready to go. We do that by providing synchronous mirroring and asynchronous replication, as well as snapshots. But the key thing here is to look at the data, understand the data, and then also understand what tier you want to run that data in, because not all data is treated equally. You could have archival data, you could have high performance data, and then you need to have a solution that does your auto tiering, where we can tier up to 15 different tiers, including tiering into the cloud. We can provision storage, have storage allocated as needed, and do data migration seamlessly behind the scenes. You don't have to worry about it with regards to which platform or which vendor you're on. Having a unified access through the on-premise, in the cloud, as well as heterogeneous environments. So you can have server-based storage as well as storage from an array. And then the chargeback modeling also is allocated here. So we can allocate specific usage based on your business line needs. So that way we can do some chargeback to the individual businesses. So really exciting, really interesting times in the industry. Digital transformation, it's a real thing. It's a verb, it's not a noun. So make sure that action takes place, but understand all the things we talked about with regards to software-defined storage and how it works. Visit datacore.com and you can learn more information about this. So with that, I'd like to ask any questions.
Yeah, great presentation, Paul. Thank you so much. We do have a number of questions here for you from the audience. So let's see, first one that came in here, they're asking about availability. What does DataCore do to ensure that data is always available?
Yeah, that's a great question. So availability for us that's one of the key things that DataCore really focuses in on. Availability, we have copies of your information, your data in multiple sites, multiple locations, depending on how you architect it. But basically our design is we have multiple DataCore servers, and those servers are replicated synchronously together, making real-time copies of the infrastructure and real-time copies of the data residing in multiple locations, so it's always available. Okay, excellent. And then another question, just maybe a clarification for this person out there. Is DataCore hardware or software? Oh, that's great. No, thank you for asking that question. So DataCore is a software package that runs in your infrastructure, that runs across any hardware vendor, any storage vendor that may be in the environment. It runs on top of Windows, and it can run either in a virtualized machine or it can run directly on a physical server, and it manages all the storage either in servers, storage that may be direct attached storage, network attached storage, or storage arrays that may be attached to the environment. So we can manage any storage vendor that's presented to the host. Very nice, very nice. Another question here, with companies struggling to manage their massively growing data, what does DataCore do about scalability? How does DataCore scale? Oh, yeah, good question. So scalability is one of our key strengths. One of the things we can do is we have this concept called storage pools. And those storage pools in an HA environment, clearly if you have a minimum of 2 storage DataCore servers in there, the storage pool is associated across the storage available to the DataCore servers, okay? We can scale up to petabytes of information per cluster, and we can go up to 64 nodes in a cluster. So we can really scale out to basically to meet the customer's needs. So if the customer is looking for a scale-out solution that has petabytes of storage, then we can scale out to as many as they need. And I was just recently talking to a customer that has about 42 nodes in their cluster, and that was a very large deployment that they're currently using today. So that's how we scale out.
Very nice. Another question is, how can companies leverage the public cloud with DataCore?
Oh, excellent. Yeah. So with DataCore, as I mentioned, we support cloud instantiations as well as on-premise, but with regards to the cloud, you can run DataCore in the cloud directly. And for example, with our latest release, we have an Azure virtual machine, DataCore, on the Azure Marketplace available today, where you can turn it on instantly and start replicating or start connecting either synchronously or asynchronously to the cloud, depending on your application's latency demands, as well as so we can run in the cloud and have that storage managed in the cloud. But we also support AWS. We also support Google Cloud and private clouds as well. So we definitely support cloud, and it looks like just another storage node in our management console.
Okay, nice. What about containers? Do you support containers as well?
Oh yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I love the conversation of containers because it ties back into the very first slide that I had. Containers are kind of an emerging technology, right? And where I think in 2018, 2019, containers are going to find their own in the industry. And what we do with containers is we have a strategic partnership with Docker as well as a strategic partnership with Kubernetes. And we work through the orchestration layer. So we work with Docker Swarm or Kubernetes to manage multiple containers or a single container if that's what you choose to do. But we can provision storage to the container that allows it to be persistent. And by nature, containers are stateless. So when you turn on a container and you shut it off, any data that's not committed is lost. So what we do is we can provision storage to the container so you can create applications that may be, I'll give you an example, an OLTP cube that's doing some processing. And if that OLTP cube is processing and writing data to the container, it can be stored there and then committed at the end of the processing cycle. So that's an example of how that container can be used using our storage. But we do the management through the orchestration layer.
Excellent. And then probably the last question we have time for is how are people getting started with DataCore? I mean, is there a free evaluation they can download? What do you recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to our website, and we have what we call as a test drive. You can actually try it right there on our website. You can download a copy of Hyperconverged Virtual SAN, or you can actually go to the Azure Marketplace and start up that virtual machine just to see it right there in the cloud as an example. So it's all readily available and ready to have that instant on kind of load and go type of mentality where the user experience is ready to go and ready to deploy.
Excellent. Well, a great presentation. Thanks so much for being on the event today, Paul.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
For more information on DataCore, visit datacore.com or check out the resource on your console. All right, great presentation by DataCore. Again, check out the resource there on your console to learn more. And I popped up our next poll question on the screen, which is, what is your industry vertical? And this one is a little long in terms of the answers there. So you may need to scroll down using the scroll bar on the right side of the screen if you don't see all the different verticals. And I'll just leave that question up because now I'm going to announce our next set of prize winners. We have another Phantom Pro drone going out to David Knoll from Minnesota. Congratulations, Dave Knoll from Minnesota. And then we've got an Amazon $500 gift card going out to Doug Long from North Dakota. And let me make sure I correct the location here. Dave Knoll from Minnesota and Doug Long from North Dakota. So again, more prizes to give away. And with that, back to the poll question. If you haven't answered that, please do so now because I'm going to share the results. And as you can guess, there's a lot of different verticals, so there's not going to be a huge percentage on any one of these. It looks like healthcare is 15%. That's impressive. 18% technology, 11% manufacturing, and if you add up all the state and local governments there's a large percentage there as well. So real good responses from a lot of different verticals. Thank you everyone for answering that poll question. We appreciate you sharing that with us. All right, we gave away our prizes. And with that, I'm excited to introduce our next presenter on the Digital Transformation Summit event today. That is Mr. Michael Welts. He's the Chief Marketing Officer at Wasabi. Michael, are you with us?
I am. Thanks very much for having me today.
Thanks for being on. Take it away.
All right, fantastic. Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Welts, the Chief Marketing Officer here at Wasabi. We're a next-generation cloud storage company addressing the huge explosion of data, the requirements to store it. So today we're going to talk about the hidden impact of digital transformation and ask one simple question. Is your data storage strategy working against you? These days, virtually everyone is talking about digital transformation and dealing with the big data explosion. At Wasabi, we think digital transformation unlocks limitless potential for businesses and organizations. But with this huge opportunity comes a silent yet massive growing problem. The massive amounts of data being created by digital transformation is causing and almost forcing a major transition in the marketplace. We call it a transition to what's called Cloud Storage 2.0. Our company, Wasabi, is one of a new breed of cloud storage providers tackling the issues of this massive data growth and how to manage and leverage data to achieve greater business efficiencies, competitiveness, and drive new business opportunities. I'd like to open today's presentation by asking a simple question. In the age of digital transformation, is your data storage strategy working against you? So let me talk a little bit, first of all, about Wasabi and why we're qualified to even hold this conversation. Before we dive into Cloud Storage 2.0, this is how Wasabi is uniquely qualified to lead the great migration to digital transformation in cloud storage. We launched in May of 2017 with a new generation of cloud storage. We call it hot storage. We're co-founded by the founders of Carbonite, one of the world's leading cloud backup companies. We're on a mission to make cloud storage a simple, affordable commodity. That's quite a mission. If you're familiar with Amazon S3 and perhaps even know how to use it, then you'll be able to use Wasabi. The big difference between us and the Amazon S3 platform is that we're 80% cheaper, 600% faster, and don't hold your data hostage to egress fees. I opened up today's conversation talking about the massive data tsunami that's about to run businesses over. If you don't gain control of how you're going to store your data will ultimately take control of you. This mind-blowing chart from IDC shows the massive growth of data as a result of connected devices, predictive analytics, mobility, smart systems, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. So why is the world ready for Cloud Storage 2.0 now? Think back to 2006 when AWS actually launched. The world generated 161 exabytes of data that year. That's equivalent to 12 stacks of books stretching from the Earth to the Sun. Today, just a little over a decade later, the world churns out an additional 2.5 exabytes every single day. That's like adding another stack of books every 5 days. By 2020, the total for global digital data will be 44 zettabytes. That's 44 trillion gigabytes. Think about it, the world just now is beginning to think beyond gigabytes into terabytes and possibly petabytes. Before long, we'll be talking about zettabytes. Here's a couple of other reasons why the world's ready for cloud storage. Big data is getting bigger. AI and analytics are changing executive expectations for business agility. Increasing data volume and velocity requires the need for speed. Legacy cloud storage is too expensive, and there's no time for storage tiers and lifecycle management. So it's time for you to control your data before it controls you. The world's digital data, the very data that's causing digital transformation to take place, will double in size every 2 years. The pace at which digital data is growing is increasing as well, 10 times faster than traditional business data. Machine-generated data is growing at a whopping 50 times faster. And as the Internet of Things kicks into high gear, All those intelligent machines, smart cities, autonomous cars, cameras, and wearables will make the current data tsunami look like a mere ripple in a pond. Not long ago, data came in from a small number of predictable sources in a few different but highly structured formats. But in the age of digital transformation, where everything generates information, not only has the number and variety of unstructured data sources expanded, so has the size of the individual files. The sheer amount of data, the variety of types of data, and how data is being used from an analytical standpoint to drive business agility and competitiveness is causing companies to revisit the various storage options available on today's market. And more companies are moving their data to cloud. We call it the Great Migration to Cloud Storage. So, as this migration begins, Gartner has recently projected that by 2022, more than 80% of the enterprises out there will move to some form of cloud storage or hybrid cloud and on-premise strategy. But in order for the masses to adopt and adapt to a new technology and operational model, it's important to take a look at the differences between traditional on-premise storage, first-generation cloud storage, and the emerging cloud storage 2.0 options. In the face of the data tsunami, your first instinct may be to throw more money at your existing on-premise storage infrastructure. But we all know that IT budgets, even when growing, are not infinite. The percentage of IT budget allocated to storage is already high. And there are many other high-priority and higher-profile initiatives competing for precious budgets. Let's look at the evolution of storage and data. First-generation storage, also known as traditional storage on this slide, is all about the on-premises model where data is hosted in large local data centers. This model continues to dominate enterprises even today. Key market players include EMC, NetApp, IBM, HP, and Hitachi. With this model, IT organizations manage information technology resources while their companies tightly control their data in their own facilities. Data security, legal, and regulatory concerns were very localized. Data types included highly structured data supporting serially executed and mostly statistical business processes. There's been historically financial and high operational barriers to prospective new competitive storage vendors to get into this market. But eventually, cloud storage came along, and the first generation was dominated by companies like Amazon. AWS launched its simple storage service, also known as S3, through a 2005 to 2008 technology base. It's primarily hosted on Linux or Windows operating systems. It uses proprietary, incompatible, competing APIs. Cloud vendors lock in their customers through a unique combination of data storage tiers, price models, and egress fees. Users are also encountering additional charges for data manipulation activities like puts, gets, deletes. And there's a continuing requirement to manage multiple storage options and pricing tiers, which can prove very costly. We'll talk about that more later. Overall, though, we've seen a gradual but steady global adoption of cloud-based storage services. And as I said, by 2017, 20 to 30% of businesses had already transitioned to cloud storage at this point. What I find fascinating about first-generation cloud storage solutions is that they were architected and built before terms like big data, IoT, and machine learning even existed. Heck, they even preceded smartphones, the number one source of video data created in the world today. And as many people recognize, video is the fastest growing form of data that needs to be stored. The real question is whether these decade-old cloud storage services can keep pace and support the types of data that are driving global digital transformation. That's why Wasabi introduced Cloud Storage 2.0 in May of last year. We believe that a massive transition to cloud computing will commoditize storage, giving birth to a new generation of cloud storage. We see increased data volumes in Cloud Storage 2.0 and the sourcing of unstructured data through crowdsourcing and social media analytics. Inside businesses, we see an elevated importance of previously benign enterprise storage technology decisions. We see businesses and their processes dynamically executed in parallel fashion, like agile business and social media customer service. And we're witnessing major changes on the data security front, things like significant fines for data loss or breach, mandatory data breach reporting laws, and heightened international data security, privacy, legal, and regulatory concerns. For example, national data sovereignty laws, Brexit, and GDPR. As in any technology market, new markets develop as a result of innovation and disruption. And as adoption becomes mainstream, commoditization sets in. Let's take a look at how the storage industry has taken shape over the last 40 years. Traditional on-premise storage is challenged by high OpEx costs and high CapEx costs as well. Technology obsolescence inevitably sets in. There's high replication risk of copying data across sites, and on-premise storage makes for more complex operations and management. It's very costly. In cloud storage 1.0, or first-generation cloud storage platforms, we see significant OpEx and CapEx benefits, but the actual ROI hasn't rung true yet. We'll talk about that more in just a minute. Vendors in this space deliver costly and confusing service tiers. There's poor performance moving data to and from the cloud, and the market leaders all have proprietary vendor lock-in strategies. In the next generation of cloud storage, also known as Cloud Storage 2.0, we're looking for affordable, fast, reliable cloud storage. In order to make that happen, storage tiers must give way to commodity-based, pay-as-you-go pricing. Data performance and retrievability must be real-time instead of limited by tier performance and pricing restrictions. And cloud storage should be vendor-compatible, serving as a platform for applications to save their data. So of these three options shown here, cloud storage seems to be the right way to go, right? Well, cloud storage sounds great, but first-generation companies and current market leaders haven't made it easy to migrate to it yet. Perhaps that's why only 20 to 30% have moved their data to the cloud so far. It must be simple, inexpensive, and safe. And as we say at Wasabi, it must become a utility. Egress fees, service tiers, regionalized pricing schemes, and API call charges add up to huge and costly considerations until now. And that's where Wasabi comes in. So with that, I'll tell you a little bit about our story. Our value proposition is very straightforward and simple. We call it the 3 Ps. It delivers value in 3 key areas: price, performance, protection. We'll be diving into each of these in more depth in just a couple of minutes. Our commitment is to deliver the fastest, cheapest, and safest cloud storage available in the market. Our vision is a driving force to commoditize the market and make cloud storage a common utility like electricity and bandwidth. Let's look at Wasabi's disruptive pricing first. Wasabi's flat fee of 0.0049 gigabytes per month for storage is a market disruptor relative to its established competitors. When you factor in the egress fees associated with retrieving your data through traditional cloud storage vendors, Wasabi is at least 80% cheaper than the current market leader, AWS S3. That's 80% that you could be spending on other digital transformation initiatives. Wasabi also provides unlimited free egress. In fact, we just announced that last week, and it's being seen as a real game changer for the cloud storage industry. Many analysts are talking about this finally unlocking the great migration to cloud storage because now we've made it predictable. In case you're unfamiliar with the term egress, it means your ability to get your very own data back from where it's stored in the cloud. That's right. It's like your own data is being held captive by your cloud service provider, and you're going to pay an enormous tax anytime you want to access that data just to run your daily business. It's almost like your data is being held hostage. At Wasabi, we're all about making things simple. Let's take a look at how easy it is to calculate your storage costs on Wasabi versus AWS. On the screen, you'll see a couple of images here, actually taken from our website. The one on the left is an example of 2 different calculators. In this chart, these calculators show actual working models of calculations based on our pricing. With Wasabi, you could simply enter in the amount of storage and it calculates your monthly cost. It's the black bar on the left side. Here it shows a cost of $399 for 100 terabytes of storage. Now look to the right side of that same image on the left. It's what's called the AWS S3 Simple Monthly Calculator. At the top in yellow, you can see what 100 terabytes of storage will cost per month, $2,355, a huge difference compared to $399. Now, what's perhaps even more striking or more alarming once you've gotten over that price is the amount of work that you have to do to actually figure out that price. Down below the yellow bar, located in white, are the number of inputs you must determine to use their so-called simple calculator. By the way, when you print this out, it literally takes up to 7 to 9 pages depending on your responses. You tell me, which calculator is more simple? That's the mission of a utility, is to simplify things, make it easy, make it reliable, make it predictable. With Wasabi, you get a one-line item storage bill. Think back to my opening remarks when I said that Wasabi is on a mission to make cloud storage a utility like electricity and bandwidth. It has to be simple. As an example, we like to pick on electricity. You never seem to walk up to a wall outlet and try to determine which type of voltage you're going to need. You just walk up to it and plug in instead. Up until now, cloud storage just hasn't made sense from a cost perspective. Last December, I attended a Gartner conference where they specifically told the audience that they would need 2 senior-level headcounts to store their data in the cloud. I was taken aback by it. By the way, the 1,500 people in the audience were as well. The first headcount that Gartner mentioned was to determine the tiers of storage and at which tier the data should be stored. There's at least 5 of them inside AWS alone. The second is to calculate the ongoing costs associated with storing and retrieving that data. That's what egress is all about. So first of all, Wasabi's eliminated all the tiers, and then second, we eliminated all the egress costs as well. So I did a quick calculation in my head just based on what was going on in the conference room, and I thought, a senior headcount charge with doing this kind of analysis and decision making might earn $250,000 a year. Gartner says you need 2 of them to do this. That's $500,000 on 2 headcounts just to decide how and where to store your data. Call me crazy, but you can store 10 petabytes of data on Wasabi for just the cost of calculating it on another platform. I'm a marketing guy, not a math guy, but even that math doesn't add up for me. Keep in mind, you haven't even stored any data yet with those vendors, and you've already spent $500,000. With Wasabi, you stored 10. The bottom line is this: simple is better, and you shouldn't have to pay to access your own data, or hire a consultant to figure out what your cloud storage costs are going to be. Eliminating egress fees and providing storage cost predictability removes the greatest remaining obstacle to storing data in the cloud. So cloud storage just hasn't made sense until there was Wasabi. Look at the cost comparison in this chart. In the case of on-premise storage, you can see the high cost of keeping your data in-house. Note just the annual maintenance fees of $62,000. Yet the overall cost of storing 1 petabyte of data on first-generation cloud storage platforms costs roughly the same amount, $276,000 versus $270,000. By the way, this doesn't include egress fees, which run normally at least 20% on top, as well as API call fees. There are nightmare stories on the internet of companies who have stored data in the cloud for a very modest fee, but when they retrieve it, costs tens of thousands of dollars to gain access to their very own data. Meanwhile, Cloud Storage 2.0 solutions like Wasabi deliver cloud storage at a fraction of the cost. And what's really compelling here is that the cost of storing 1 petabyte of data on Wasabi is cheaper than the maintenance fees, just the maintenance fees alone, on traditional on-premise storage. So now let's look at Wasabi's disruptive performance innovation. Wasabi's architecture enables 6 times faster performance relative to AWS S3, the widely regarded fastest solution on the market until now. In the case of Amazon Glacier Cold Storage, you might get a video file in 3 to 5 hours, according to their website, once you submit a request to retrieve that file. With Wasabi, you'll get that same file in milliseconds. Think of the impact on your business or in applications like medical imaging or genomic research and the time difference that we bring to the table. So Wasabi is cheaper than the cheapest, faster than the fastest. What about safety and security? Well, here are the top 5 reasons for data loss. Note that hardware failure is a huge risk. Again, you have to tie that to on-premises storage. That's one risk that's totally in your own hands with on-premises storage. At Wasabi, we recognize the value and importance of your data in the era of digital transformation. Wasabi is built for scale, durability, security, and compliance. So as your business grows and your data doubles every 2 years, you can buy storage as you grow instead of locking into a 5-year model that typically comes with on-premises storage. We're 11 nines of durability, just like the market leader. We also regularly check your data and update the data so that it remains current across our distributed architecture at all layers. We call that active integrity checking. We have a data immutability feature that allows you to preserve and protect your data from malicious behavior, accidental deletions, and more. And we're compliant with many of the industry's most important compliance initiatives. So now that you know what we've developed at Wasabi, let's go back to the beginning and compare the three. This baseline comparison shows that on-premise storage falls far short of today's cloud storage solutions. For that matter, so do first-generation cloud storage solutions as well. So, in wrapping things up, I'd like to ask you what digital transformation could mean to your business. If you had the storage capabilities of today's cloud storage 2.0 solutions like Wasabi, the machine analysis of facial recognition data could have been retrieved in hours instead of days, helping to solve the Boston Marathon bombing crime faster while the killers were still on the loose. In biotech and health science, it means running algorithms across massive data sets to make incredible breakthroughs faster than is currently humanly possible. In media, as well as in education, it means creating entirely new revenue streams of old content for the movie industry, while reinventing education as we know it through augmented reality. Give you a moment to look through this. Here's a few more examples of how Wasabi is helping companies to leverage their storage to optimize digital transformation. I'm sure that with our audience today, at least based on some of the presentations that have gone before us, we've touched on our ability to impact your specific vertical. At the beginning of today's discussion, I asked one simple question. In the age of digital transformation, is your data storage strategy working against you? It's time to put your data to work for you. Check out Wasabi to learn more, and I thank you for your generous time today. I'm happy to take any questions that might be out there.
Yes, great presentation, Mike. Very interesting. I love seeing new innovative solutions like Wasabi. So let's see, first question I have for you is Wasabi compatible with applications that run on S3?
Yes, great question. In fact, we have over, let's see, I think it's just crossed over 120 partners now that all run on the main three platforms, including Amazon S3. And we, out of the gate, made sure that we were 100% compatible with S3. So the short answer is yes, applications can run on us. If you're running on S3, you can absolutely run on us. In fact, our engineers and architects went to the painful extent of actually replicating the bugs in the S3 platform as we built our version, so that even down to the extent where there's a bug, it can exist inside Wasabi, so you don't have to try to figure that out on your own.
Okay, I like that. Another question here is, how many data centers do you have?
Yeah, great question. So, as I mentioned, we launched back in May of last year. The company is going through incredible growth, literally over 4,000 customers in just under 10 months. And so we're trying to meet the demand as fast as possible and spreading our wings as fast as possible. Right now we have data centers here in Boston and down in Virginia. Actually, at the end of the month here, we're going to announce one on the West Coast, based up in Oregon to serve the West Coast market. And then we will be opening up later on this year over in Europe as well, primarily targeting the markets in England first and then followed by Germany afterwards. I will tell you, though, however, that the people that are in Europe right now are currently represent about 20% of our overall business. So clearly the response rates, the time to retrieve your data, doesn't seem to be affected by the ocean between us.
Very nice. And then probably the last question we have time for, they're asking here, is Wasabi hardware or software? Do I install Wasabi on my own hardware? How does that work? Yeah, no,
we're a pure SaaS play, and so this makes it really simple. All you have to do is come to our website. You can do a 30-day free trial of it through either an S3 interface. Again, I guess as the marketing guy, I can tip my hand a little bit. Next week, you'll find that we're actually going to announce that we are now introducing a client for Mac and Windows. So that'll be a great addition to the product family. You'll now be able to download our client, drag and drop it right onto your desktop. What we found is, especially with a number of these Ivy League schools here where there's a large research effort going on, a lot of the universities are looking to actually put a storage asset on the desktops of all their researchers, which number in the thousands, and they can now download our client and put all the research and have it all operable and saved on a regular basis in the cloud. So yes, we're completely available online. It's a simple 30-day free trial for 1 terabyte.
Very nice, very nice. Well, thank you, Mike, for being on the event today.
Thanks very much. Appreciate the opportunity and look forward to hearing from people, and good luck on your digital transformation.
Thank you. For more information on Wasabi, visit their website, wasabi.com. Also check out the resource that's available for download right there on your console. All right, with that, it's time to give away another drone and another gift card. And while I do so, I'm going to pop up this poll question. And I don't have such a lengthy description about it as I did at the start of the event. If you didn't hear that description and you missed that question, basically Actual Tech Media is starting a new program where we're looking for IT organization executives and practitioners who are willing to share their opinions. If you're interested in that, you can say yes right here. And if not, say no thanks, not right now. So I'll just leave that question up for you. And the next Amazon $500 gift card is going out to Brian Muskie from Virginia. Congratulations, Brian. And then we have one of these really cool Phantom Pro drones going out to Tom Rodriguez from Texas. Congratulations, Tom. Congratulations, Brian. All right, now it's time to move on. And I'm excited to introduce Craig Hollowell. He is a Data Protection and Emerging Technologies Alliances Specialist at Pure Storage, and Sean Liu, who is a Solutions Architect in Global Alliances at Veeam. Craig and Sean, are you with us?
I am, yes. I am as well.
Awesome. Excellent. Thanks for being on. Take it away.
All right, thanks and good day, everyone. This is Craig Hollowell with Pure Storage. Today we're going to talk about the Pure and Veeam Alliance, and in particular our theme, which is Flash Forward for the Always-On Enterprise. Pure and Veeam have been working together for a couple years now, but what we are here to announce today and in the next couple months is a very exciting announcement, which is snapshot integration for the Pure Storage Flash Array family, which will allow Veeam to manage Pure Flash Array snapshots. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started. So one of the things that sets this partnership apart is our customer satisfaction. You may be familiar with the Net Promoter Score. Net Promoter Score is done by Satmetrics, and it basically measures satisfaction of current customers. The highest score possible is 100. Average scores for the tech industry tend to be in the 50 or 60 range. One of the things we think is really interesting is that both Pure and Veeam have the highest scores in their respective industries. So in the data storage industry, complexity is something that's been just kind of a given for a long time. Typical scores tend to be even below 50. The last time Pure was ranked was in 2016, and our score was a whopping 83.5. That's fairly close to what the Apple iPhone is. And Veeam similarly is super high. Their last ranking was 73. So real high numbers in terms of customer satisfaction. And we think the reason this is that both of us have removed complexity in our respective industries. So I mentioned complexity in the data storage industry. Data protection is equally complex. For a long time, you've had to come in and install agents and servers, and it's in a lot of cases required professional services. Veeam completely removes that to a point where the product is easy to install and configure. So it's this simplicity that kind of binds the two companies together and makes customers satisfied overall. Real quick background on Pure's products. Pure Storage has two specific product families. First is the Flash Array. This is what we've been shipping for 5+ years now, but we've continued to make great improvements in density and performance. We now offer the Flash Array in 100% NVMe, where a customer can get over a petabyte of density, and this is usable capacity, in just 3 rack units. We have multiple protocol support, including vVols. In terms of performance, you can get 12 gigabytes a second of bandwidth in this device that's shown here. We offer 6 nines of availability, and it says NDU everything. If you're not familiar with NDU, that means non-disruptive upgrades. That means that you can upgrade controllers in the system, you can upgrade the flash drives or replace flash drives that are worn out, or even even upgrade the operating system, all while the system's still running, and most importantly, while your applications are still running. Another product family that you might not be as familiar with is FlashBlade. So FlashBlade is our converged file and object platform. We call it the all-flash data hub for modern analytics, but in a lot of cases it's being used for workload consolidation. As you'll see later, that will be not only analytics, but it could be DevOps or as a backup target. We take density and performance to a whole new level with FlashBlade. In one full rack, you could get over 10 petabytes of usable storage. You can get 80 gigabytes per second of bandwidth. And one of the things that makes this platform unique is how it scales. It's called FlashBlade because you can simply add blades in those kind of vertical slots in the chassis as you see. So you scale simply by adding blades as opposed to adding a whole new chassis. In terms of Veeam, I'm sure you all know that Veeam is a leader in the data protection industry. What you might not know, though, is how broad their market share and presence is. Veeam has a total of 282,000 customers worldwide, and they're adding net new customer logos at an average of 4,000 a month, which is just incredible. It's why they're having so much success in the data protection industry. One of the things that you might not be aware of as well is their penetration into the enterprise and large accounts. Veeam has over 57% of the Global 2000 as customers and a whopping 74% of the Fortune 1000. So you might look at that 282,000 number and think, well, these are a lot of SMB users. That surely is the case with that number, but Veeam has penetrated the enterprise very successfully, and they continue to do so. So what we're providing together is the all-flash, always available architecture. It starts with the flash array being protected by Veeam, leveraging flash array snapshots, and that's what you'll see later today from Sean. And of course, what we've added is FlashBlade as a backup repository. So what this enables is copies of snapshots or backup copies of snapshots to be archived to a super fast backup repository, and that repository can also be used for analytics and DevOps. So it's an entire consolidation platform in addition to just a fast backup platform. And with that intro, Sean, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Craig. So thanks for taking the time, everyone. I'm just going to go through a little bit of the integration features that we have with Pure Flash Array, some really great new technologies that we're going to be introducing with the plugin that's coming soon. So the first feature that I want to speak about is the Veeam Explorer for storage snapshots. This is a very powerful feature that can really change the way you're able to leverage not only snapshots but backups in conjunction with that and kind of layer the two together to give you a cohesive data protection strategy that's not only going to give you the best possible recovery point, but also the best possible recovery time objectives. So what is the Veeam Explorer for storage snapshots? Right? The Veeam Explorer for storage snapshots is a way to quickly perform a number of different restores directly from a snapshot. And that could be anything from a full virtual machine restore down to individual guest files within the operating system, down to individual application items as well. And we have a number of different explorers for these applications that I'll show you and kind of talk through it a little bit more. But in essence, it allows you to get exactly what you need when you need it, down to very granular application items. So by leveraging the capabilities of Pure Flash Array storage snapshots, we can kind of layer two different recovery point objectives together and overlay them so that we have a very strategic and very comprehensive strategy. Right? So in this example, what we're doing here is that within Veeam, because of our integration, we have the capability to schedule array-based snapshots, for example, on an hourly basis. Right? And these are your standard crash-consistent hardware-based snapshots that you would create within the Pure Flash Array today, only now you can schedule it within the Veeam console. You layer on top of that the ability to add application-aware image processing completely agentlessly and get an application-consistent snapshot. And you can do that a little less often, right? Maybe twice a day in this example. But the idea is by layering those two different schedules together, you now have a recovery point objective of once per hour, right? And you can do so even more frequently if you wish. So this covers the recovery point objective side of things. So now let's talk about the recovery time objectives, right? I have these really great recovery point objectives hourly. What can I do with that? So directly from a storage snapshot, we have the ability to perform our patented instant VM recovery. What this does is we're actually able to run a copy of the virtual machine directly off of that storage snapshot, and everything's handled automatically for you on the back end. There's no need to perform any type of resignaturing or mounting of snapshots. All of that is done automatically. You can also perform individual file level recoveries for Windows and 19 different other file systems outside of Windows, right? So it's very flexible. And you can also perform application item recoveries. And we're about to get into the different explorers we have for those individual applications as well. But the nice thing is the Veeam Explorer for Storage Snapshots allow you to perform the same recovery options, all of these different recovery options that you're looking at now, from either a crash consistent or an application consistent snap. So it's a unique differentiator, right? Because, for example, if you already have a Pure Flash array today and you're already scheduling snapshots on the array itself, you can actually deploy Veeam within your environment, and Veeam will go and scan all of your pre-existing snapshots that we have never seen before. And you'll be able to perform these different number of recovery options immediately. Okay, so it provides an immediate return on investment. So now let's talk about the different application level explorers that we have. We have one for Active Directory, one for Exchange, one for SharePoint, one for SQL, and one for Oracle. Right? All of them look and feel very similar. As you can see here from the different screens, I know it's probably a little bit hard to see, but they're all very similar feeling. They all have a ribbon style type interface at the top, a number of different restore options. You can restore to a different location. You can restore to the original location. You can restore things like an entire database or an individual email or contact. Lots of flexibility here. And everything is all wizard driven, and everything is essentially automated on the back end. So when you launch an Explorer, like for example the Veeam Explorer for Exchange, everything is done on the back end for you, and you can be launching that Explorer and have it up and running in a minute or two, right, and begin restoring emails immediately. So that really helps to shrink your recovery time objective significantly. So now let's talk about our patented instant VM recovery, because it's unique in that instant VM recovery actually is the same whether you're doing it from a storage snapshot or from a backup file that we created from that storage snapshot. So essentially, let's take your standard type scenario where maybe a single application goes down within your environment. Right? What Veeam's doing is we can actually run that virtual machine from an existing snapshot or from a backup file, and we'll automatically mount it to the host of your choice and have you back up and running in a matter of minutes. Right? Once that virtual machine is up and running, you can validate that that is the version of the application that you were looking for. And once you've validated that, you can begin the migration on the back end to move it back to production storage. And that migration, by leveraging storage vMotion, is completely seamless, will not require any additional downtime. So your end users will not be further impacted. Now let's talk about the Veeam backup from storage snapshot technology. And so how does this work, and what does this deliver in particular? So Veeam is able to leverage Pure storage snapshots for backup. The nice thing is we layer an application-aware image processing engine on top of that. And application-aware image processing is very unique in that it doesn't deliver just application consistency. It goes beyond application consistency, and it's able to deliver log handling in the form of being able to truncate your logs, or being able to back up your transaction logs on a separate frequency, for example, with SQL and with Oracle. It also is able to perform essentially a VSS restore identification. Right? What we do as part of our application or image processing engine is we identify that particular application on that VM. So when you need to restore an application, for example, like Active Directory, Veeam will perform the proper VSS restore procedure for Active Directory, so you don't have to go through all of those 5 or 6 different steps manually. So what's the advantage of leveraging a hardware-based snapshot for backups? For those of you that may not be familiar, leveraging VMware snapshots for an image level backup, it's pretty straightforward, right? It's an easy call into vSphere to create that snapshot. But the thing is, that snapshot will stay open the entire duration of the backup. And if this is a large VM, that could be a considerable amount of time. And the problem is not creating the snapshot. The problem actually comes when you go to remove that snapshot, right? Because for the entire duration of the backup job, that snapshot has been open. Now that I'm done with the backup, I go to remove that snapshot. Snapshot removal leads to high I/O load, right? Could cause possible stuns on the VM or the application. And it could take a long time to actually delete the snapshot. So we overcome this challenge by leveraging hardware integration. Now keep in mind we do have a patent pending approach to this, so we will still leverage VMware snapshots. We leverage this in order to perform things like application consistency, in order to leverage change block tracking so we can perform faster incremental backups. But the idea here is that VM snapshot is only open for a few moments. Once we've created that VM snapshot, we go ahead and create the hardware snapshot, and then we can immediately delete the VMware snapshot. This means that the snapshot consolidation or the snapshot deletion is almost instant, with little to no impact to the production environment. So now let's walk through how this actually works, right? This is a brief workflow diagram. It has a lot of animations in it. So let's take, for example, we have this vSphere environment that we want to leverage Veeam's backup from storage snapshot technology with. And in this environment, we have a Pure Flash array. So what Veeam's going to do as a backup server, now there are some different requirements here from a backup server and backup proxy perspective, depending on whether the Flash array itself is using iSCSI or Fiber Channel. And we will have a significant documentation coming out that will outline all the different requirements and what you will need from a backup server perspective. But essentially what Veeam's going to do, right, is we can actually connect directly within vSphere, and this can be directly to vCenter, or we can actually connect directly to ESXi hosts, for example, for those maybe those robo environments that don't have vCenter, right? That's going to perform your application-aware consistency, your application-aware image processing, right? And this includes VSS, log truncation, and those application restore switches that I was speaking about earlier. Once we do all of that, we will then create a VM snapshot. And then we will retrieve the change block tracking info. After that, we will create a hardware snapshot on the Flash array itself. And then we can remove the VM snapshot immediately after the hardware snap is created. We can then load balance the backup from that snapshot across one or multiple VM backup proxies. And the nice thing about our architecture is you can start with a couple of proxies, and as your environment grows, you can simply add additional proxies into the environment without having to go and change your backup jobs. So you can grow your data protection solution as needed without additional administration. That will perform a backup from that storage snapshot, and we can do things like block level incremental, we can do forever forward incremental backups, we can do your traditional style incremental backups, a lot of different options within Veeam itself for that. And then we'll simply compress and dedupe that backup file before sending it to your target repository of choice. And as Craig mentioned before, this could be the FlashBlade. And the nice thing about leveraging the FlashBlade for this type of backup is a lot of people generally like to put their backups on slow media, right? They have a storage array that's been laying around. Why not use that, right? It's just a backup. Well, Veeam leverages backups a little bit differently than a lot of your legacy solutions out there. Right? We're able to do a number of different things from our backups that can really take advantage of the performance of something like a FlashBlade. So now let's talk about snapshot-only jobs. Right? So this is a really nice feature because what this allows you to do is essentially it allows you to create snapshot jobs within Veeam without actually having to take a backup. Right? So instead of having to go and schedule storage-based snapshots within the Pure web interface, you can do everything directly from Veeam. So you can have one console to manage everything. And this can include both application consistent snapshots as well as crash consistent snapshots. Just to give you an example of how this looks, essentially when you add the Pure Flash array into the Veeam console, Veeam will automatically create a backup repository called Pure Storage Snapshot. And all you have to do is simply select this as a repository when you wish to create a snapshot-only job. Last but not least, a really great and unique technology within Veeam is the on-demand sandbox for storage snapshots. This also includes our Sure Backup technology. Some really powerful, a really powerful solution here that can allow you to leverage pre-existing backups and snapshots for other use cases. So let's talk about what the on-demand sandbox for storage snapshots is. Right? This is able to leverage snapshots that Veeam has orchestrated or created on those Pure storage arrays, and you can leverage it for an ad hoc test dev environment. And many customers that I speak to have a dedicated test dev environment, and the challenge there has always been, how do I keep my test dev environment current with my production environment, right? That test dev environment is generally always a week, sometimes a couple weeks, sometimes months behind production. Well, the nice thing with this is, one, it does not require dedicated hardware. And two, you can leverage your investment into your disaster recovery site, for example, and use that as your test dev environment. And three, you can perform this from a snapshot that you just took 10 minutes ago. Right? So you can be very close and have a production-like environment to perform your test dev off of. So how does this work? Okay, so this builds off of our instant VM recovery technology, but what we're able to do is we can create a virtual lab, and this is essentially an isolated environment within your production environment, so you don't have to worry about any segmentation of the network so that there's no conflicts. You don't have to worry about any of that. All of this is handled for you via our wizard. Now, in this isolated environment, Veeam can power up any number of different virtual machines so that you can leverage it for a couple of different purposes, right? You can use it as your ad hoc test dev environment, or you can run Sure Backup against it. And what Sure Backup does is this is actually an automated recovery verification procedure. What we're going to do is we can actually power up the virtual machines automatically, make sure the operating system comes online, make sure that we're able to ping that virtual machine. We can even run application test scripts against that particular application. You can even have Veeam execute custom test scripts as well. And once we're done, we can power everything off and send you an automated report of our findings. Or you can leave that environment up and running for your own test dev environment. You can even set static IPs within production to allow your application owners to access that environment and perform their own testing. So here are some of the really great use cases for on-demand sandbox for storage snapshots. Right? You can leverage it to perform troubleshooting. Right? I like to bring up service packs, right? Because I guess I've had a spotted history with service packs. Right? When a major service pack comes out, you can actually perform that service pack installation inside this isolated environment first. And of course, if that goes successful, that'll make you feel a lot better before you roll that service pack out into production, right? Because you already know what the impact's going to be. You can use it to do training. Right? This is really great for disaster recovery as well. Right? When I speak to customers, I like to speak about disaster recovery, right? Because you've made a huge investment in that disaster recovery site. And you have this really great documentation outlining all the different procedures that you need to perform if a disaster were to ever occur. But the one thing that's generally lacking is practicing that statement of work that you have for disaster recovery, right? And generally speaking, when a disaster strikes, people are running around like crazy. There's shortened time frames. There's a lot of room for error. You can help minimize that by leveraging the on-demand sandbox to help stage those disaster recovery tests. So now your employees get to be able to practice that particular disaster recovery procedure that's been put in place. And last but not least, I just want to briefly talk about our virtual data center in a box solution. Essentially what this is a converged infrastructure called the FlashStack Mini, which is comprised of a Cisco UCS Mini, which is a blade server chassis that can hold up to 8 blade servers, along with a Pure Flash array. Now, we've combined this with Veeam and also a Cisco C240 rack server. And what this solution provides you is not only a converged infrastructure where you can run all of your virtual machines off of, but also be able to protect all of your virtual machines in case you ever need to restore them to this site or to another site. And with that, thank you for your time. I guess we'll take a few questions.
Yeah,
Sean,
great
there were a couple
presentation.
questions. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, there were a couple questions that came up. First of which was with regard to SQL and Oracle restores and granular recovery. And I think the particular question was, can you do table-level restores? So, Sean, maybe you can take that one?
Sure. And the answer is yes. You can perform table-level restores. The nice thing is, as I kind of briefly mentioned there, if you're performing a backup of SQL, you can also choose to have Veeam perform log-level backups as well for both SQL and Oracle. And the nice thing is when you go to perform like a table-level restore, you can actually fine-tune it to a particular SQL transaction.
Great. There was another question about migration. The question was, can this solution be used for migration? And I answered it online, and I basically said, while it possibly could, it's not one of our intended use cases. But Sean, maybe you can expand.
Sure. Yeah. There are of course, that is definitely can be a use case. There is an engine built in where you can perform replication of individual virtual machines for that migration type use case.
Okay. And there was one additional question about pricing, and I indicated online that the pricing varies greatly depending on the size of the environment. But I will say the virtual data center in a box solution that Sean highlighted at the end, that's intended to be able to support roughly 1,000 VMs for production all the way to protection. And we've estimated a street price in kind of the very low 6 figures, just to give you a ballpark idea.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was all the questions we had.
All right. Great job, Craig. Thank you, Sean. Great presentations. Thanks for being on the event today.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
For more information on the Pure Storage and Veeam solution, check out the resource that's on your console right there that covers the virtual data center in a box that Sean was talking about just a moment ago in his presentation. Sounds really, really cool, really innovative. So thank you, Veeam, again, and thank you, Pure Storage. With that, it's time for another prize announcement. The next set of prizes are going out to, let's see, first off, the Amazon $500 gift card is going to Corey McKinney from Minnesota. Congratulations, Corey. And the next drone is going out to Matt Peterson from Wisconsin. Congratulations, Matt. Stay tuned. We've got a lot more prizes and great presentations on the event today. And speaking of that, I'm excited to introduce Beth Joseph, who is a Senior Storage Marketing Manager from Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. Beth, are you with us?
I'm with you.
Hi, thanks for being on the event today. Take it away.
Sure, thanks. And thanks for having me. I guess my job here today is to talk to you about Hewlett-Packard Enterprise's view on how storage, the technology, the products, the industry trends can help you enable a digital transformation in your business or industry. Let's see, there we go. So why is understanding the connection between storage and a successful digital transformation so important? So it's really because your digital transformation is going to help you, be more innovative and competitive in the future, right? And if there's a weak link in that chain anywhere, this innovation and the competitiveness is going to be hard to come by. So your move to digital transformation likely includes an implementation of a hybrid IT environment, which is a great way, sure, to enable, right, digital transformation. But it's important to make sure that the storage infrastructure in that hybrid IT world is up to the task and isn't that weak link, right? If it is, in your environment, you're definitely not alone. As you see on this slide here, we have some recent data from Aberdeen that shows how enterprises who are implementing hybrid IT are today challenged by three things. First is the lack of agility. Second is the need for strong integration between the cloud and on-prem systems. And last, but not least, is the realization that their current infrastructure just isn't meeting their needs. And all three of these things are directly tied to storage. So now I want to talk about how flash storage in particular plays a role in addressing these challenges. So the move to the all-flash data center has been one of the biggest shifts that we've seen in the storage industry over the last several years, right? Unlike most technology transitions, this has happened a lot faster than anybody probably forecasted. We've quickly moved from a time where flash was, an exclusive tier 1 media choice for that extreme high performance environment, through to the last several years where the price of flash has really reached that of spinning disks. And now we're on the cusp of what we call this third wave, right, where flash is the default deployment for business applications. If we look at our own product mix, the flash arrays and the hybrid arrays that we ship at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, over 60% of those primary arrays that we're now shipping are configured for all flash. So this third wave is definitely here. When we look at the competitive landscape too, most individual array features are becoming normalized across all of the vendors these days, right? You can look at the most recent Gartner Magic Quadrant as evidence of that, right? This doesn't mean, though, that as customers you should not consider the strengths of individual products or boxes, right? You certainly should. But it also means, at least from our opinion here, that you need to think beyond the box, right, to really maximize the benefits that flash can bring to your data center. Looking beyond the box, right, is what happens when flash is a given and everybody's the leader. So to address the potentially aging storage infrastructure at the same time, we think you need to look for flash solutions that address three things, these being solutions that are predictive, cloud-ready, and timeless. And so what predictive means is that the array can anticipate and prevent issues, not just in the storage device itself, but across your infrastructure stack. Think about what that type of functionality could mean in for your support experience, for example. And then we also think that storage needs to be cloud ready. Maybe this is a given in this day and age, but in our view, the ability to move data easily and inexpensively for various workloads, between on-prem and the public cloud is a must-have. And last, customers tell us they need solutions that are timeless. And what that means to us is that the solutions are future-proof, right? It has an architecture, technical capabilities, financial flexibility to make sure and even guarantee that data is in the right place at the right time for the right cost, and that the storage device itself is really going to stand that test of time. So I want to explore in the next couple minutes here these three requirements in a little bit more detail. First, when we talk about storage that needs to be predictive, it's because you can't afford what we call the app data gap. And I'm sure you've experienced that spinning circle, right? Whether it's on your phone or your desktop device, right? As individuals, we're interacting with technology on a daily basis now, and we've come to expect that data is going to be available always and instantly, right? A great example of that is when you get into your car and you open up Google Maps to try to navigate to your destination. You want those directions, on your phone or in your nav system immediately. So data is also essential in every business too. Any slowdown or disruption that occurs across the infrastructure stack, whether that be storage or networks, servers, or VMs, causes this app data gap, and that disrupts the application and makes users wait, which can cause your business to lose money. So why does it happen? How does it happen? If you're in IT, you've probably been asked those questions, and if you're a storage admin in particular, the proverbial finger has probably been pointed at you. But many times, you and your colleagues, you just don't know where the issue's coming from. So in our view, the fundamental requirement for storage is that it needs to help close that app data gap. Okay, so what's interesting is that, we analyzed the causes of this app data gap. We have a team of data scientists that looked at thousands of cases that were opened where administrators had determined, through their own due diligence that there was something wrong with their storage, which was causing a performance or an availability issue. But what we found was really interesting. And that was that the app data gap wasn't just caused by one thing. And although storage often gets the blame for most of the problems, in reality, less than half of the issues were actually caused by storage. The rest relate to complex infrastructure interactions, as you can kind of see on this slide. The interactions are so complex, in fact, that it's becoming impossible for admins to navigate all the best practices of all these different components to take into account the dependencies that they all bring with them so that you can really keep your infrastructure running optimally. So that leads me to say, so what is the answer? Just going to let this build. Just as autonomous cars offer the promise of safer roads and less traffic and faster travel, we believe that we're entering this era where we have the tools to apply AI, artificial intelligence, within the data center. Both examples work through a combination of rich telemetry and sensors, cross correlations between components, real-time predictive analytics, and global learning. About a year ago, HPE acquired Nimble Storage and the InfoSight predictive analytics platform, which industry analysts recognize as a leader in that space, or in this space. Every second, InfoSight is collecting data from thousands of embedded sensors in every array in our install base. We're pulling data in from across the infrastructure stack for this complete cross-stack telemetry. So we're collecting, we've collected more than 250 billion sensor values, more than 2 billion log events, more than 100 million configuration variables, which over the time since 2010 when this all started is about 370 trillion pieces of data or data points. So when you look at AI, it's the breadth and the depth of the data that you collect that's key to extracting value, right? So the data that I just mentioned, all those big numbers, was across an installed base of 10,000 customers when Nimble was a storage-only company. Earlier this year, we made this InfoSight technology available to our 3PAR installed base, to our 3PAR customers. So imagine the breadth and depth that now we're starting to collect across 60,000 3PAR arrays, and then someday across hundreds of thousands of ProLiant servers. And I guess I should mention that, if you're a 3PAR customer and you haven't started using InfoSight yet, now is a great time. You can just go to infosight.hpe.com and sign in. You can do that today. Anyway, AI for the data center is where HPE is going and why we think we're in a unique position to close this app data gap. And before I move off this topic, let's see if we can bring up a quick poll question.
Yeah, so we've got a poll on the screen out there for everyone in the audience. The question is, in your enterprise IT environment, have you experienced the app data gap yourself? And the options are there on the screen. I encourage you to answer the poll, and you're going to share the results in just a moment, right, Beth?
Am I going to share the results? Sure.
Or we will share the results. I just want to make sure you want to share those.
Oh, yeah, go ahead and share them, yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see the results of this poll. Let's give the audience just another moment to answer this. Do you have any predictions, Beth?
I have a prediction. I'm going to wait and see how it goes.
Okay.
I bet it's not the last one.
I bet you're right. So let me share the results now, and let's see what those look like. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that's pretty typical of what we see. Yes, all of these, right? And like I said, what we have seen is that a lot of our customers experience that, and it's gotten so complicated that it almost boggles the human brain. So we definitely
24% said all of these problems. So
yeah, and combine that with the first one, where my IT environment is too complicated to pinpoint the exact cause, right?
Yeah, sounds like this is a solution a lot of companies need. So go ahead.
Good. Okay. So now the next requirement that we hear from IT admins or that they've brought to us is related to the cloud, right? The issue is that IT admins, like you, are being asked for their cloud strategy, right? But they still have to deal with the day-to-day reality of keeping current infrastructure running and satisfying the businesses, their business needs today. So while you're trying to figure out how to evolve to take advantage of cloud-related offerings, ranging from, cloud-inspired capabilities to the public cloud itself, you still got to keep the day-to-day business going. And one of the main drivers of cloud in the storage world is this perceived improvement in agility and cost benefits. Customers are looking at their legacy infrastructure and they're not seeing that. They're seeing the opposite of that, the opposite of agility and efficiency, with data that's trapped in silos and that costs that have come out of control. And it's really, from what we're seeing, it has hamstrung IT admins so that they can't really move quickly. But our perspective at HPE is that by deploying cloud-ready storage on-prem today, you can be better prepared for moving to the cloud at any time, and at the same time achieve the agility benefits that you get, with our solutions within your own data center. Modern approaches to storage, they can and they do natively link primary storage, secondary storage, and public cloud storage so that you can move application data easily and avoid, even vendor lock-in. And so, there we go. Our flash storage portfolio was architected with this in mind, this idea of federated data mobility to move across all flash and hybrid systems, across primary and secondary storage, and even from on-prem to the public cloud. This level of flexibility means you can deploy flash everywhere. You can assign applications to the best type of storage for the price performance requirement of that data. But you can also easily and non-disruptively adjust as needs change, which they always do. So this includes the ability to host primary volumes and archive tiers in Microsoft Azure, Amazon's AWS, so that your on-prem storage deployments are ready, are cloud ready from day one. And I think I have a quick poll on this topic too. Can we bring that up?
Absolutely, yeah. The question on the screen now for those in the audience, it says, what kinds of data do you store in the cloud? Just select your option now, and we'll share the results with you. If I had to make a prediction on this one, I would say all of it, but we'll see.
We'll see, yeah.
All right, hopefully everyone's had a chance to answer that question. I'm going to share the results now, and let's take a look. All right, 23% did say all of it. 22% said backup data, and 13% data from Tier 2 applications, 5% mission critical or business data. What do you think, Beth?
Interesting, right? I think when you combine backup data, we see a lot of customers using the cloud for, as for backup workloads. So that's pretty consistent. All of it is interesting too, right? That a lot of people are putting that, almost 25% are using the cloud for all kinds of data. And then there's still a big chunk, right? So this is something that's still emerging, right? That more than a third are still all on-prem. So this is, one of these things that's evolving. Every time we ask this question, the numbers change a little bit, so that's all good. Thanks.
Excellent. Sure.
Okay, so now let's look at requirement number 3, something that we call timeless, right? So not long ago, in IT, you'd purchase a storage system, run it for 3 to 5 years, and then you'd go through that painful rip and replace upgrade to keep up with your growth, right? To add more capacity, swap out your array, whatever. Now, with the amount of performance and density that comes in flash today or in flash systems, the refresh cycles are getting longer. But the underpinning processor, the media technologies, they're still changing quickly, so there's still that risk of obsolescence. And at the same time, large capital expenditures are, being shifted in favor of OpEx consumption models. So where does that leave you? Hopefully it doesn't leave you with storage that you don't like. But if you find that you don't, well, what we're finding is you don't have to be stuck with storage that you don't like. Your technology purchase and your refresh doesn't have to be painful. Customers should look for a vendor that stands behind their products with reliability guarantees, built-in tech refreshes, and a cloud-like pay-as-you-go business model to help you, achieve this, radically different storage experience. You should also look for vendors, that preserve your investment as needs change, so that you can always keep up with that next generation technology and not be always trying to play catch up. There we go. Okay, thanks. So, so timeless storage, is storage that says never let you down, right? It can truly stand the test of time. With our HPE storage products, we've made it easy for you to achieve this radically simple storage experience without all the headaches. It's an all-inclusive experience that stays simple and preserves your investment as your business grows and as your needs evolve over time. This timeless model includes all the things you see listed on the slide here, all-inclusive licensing, pain-free data migrations, 6 nines of availability guaranteed, and this flexible financing options that include pay-as-you-go or pay-as-you-grow that nets out to pennies per gig per month. The other thing it provides is a path to the future, right? Which is bringing with that, support for things like NVMe and storage class memory, which are all these next big things in Flash. So now this is my shameless look at how HPE delivers on these big 3 requirements, right? You can take a look at the lineup. As I mentioned here, we're in this 3rd wave. And Flash has become the default media, so it's kind of not surprising that we've got Flash offerings across a wide spectrum of products here. But the place where we focus the most is on these 2 product families, 3PAR and Nimble. 3PAR has been our flagship storage solution for a while now, or Flash storage solution. As I mentioned earlier, we recently added Nimble storage to the family. Both of these enterprise class Flash products offer that predictive cloud-ready, timeless foundation that you need for hybrid IT. 3PAR is the solution that we find customers looking at when they need a high degree of flexibility, right? That means that they want to be able to tune the system. They want to be able to turn the knobs. But they also want the broadest set of storage software features. Nimble, on the other hand, has been a great solution for customers who are looking for simplicity. Think VM admins, right, who don't want to have to worry about storage. But together, these 2 solutions offer options and flexibility that make sure that storage, back to my original point, is not the weak link in your digital transformation. So, and of course, we don't stop there. Is there at primary storage, we offer a portfolio of Flash-optimized data protection solutions, too, that, handle a variety of use cases and workloads. The Nimble secondary Flash array is a unique device where you can run real, workloads on an array that was built for secondary and backup data. And we recently announced and started to ship Cloud Bank storage, which takes advantage of object storage to make backup to the cloud, going back to that use case a minute ago in the poll. It makes it cost-effective with 0 risk for long-term data retention and disaster recovery. So let me just wrap it up by coming back to the fundamentals, right? So from our perspective, storage in 2018 needs to deliver value to your business. Gone are the days when storage was just a place where your data sat or where it lived, right? With the advantage that Flash storage brings, it can deliver value. But we believe, too, that you'll get the most out of a Flash storage array if it is predictive, cloud-ready, and timeless. So take full advantage of that where you can. And with that, I think I am done. Thanks for
Great
listening.
presentation. Yeah, thank you, Beth. Let's see here. We do have some questions for you from the audience. If you have a minute for a couple questions.
Sure.
All right. So let's see. First question is about the predictive analytics that you talked about. They're asking, are those only available in the Nimble storage, previously Nimble storage arrays?
So originally it came to HPE via our Nimble acquisition, right? So it's certainly available in the Nimble storage products. But as of sometime at the end of January, I believe, we started shipping this for the 3PAR products too. So for customers who are, existing 3PAR users who want to get a sense of what InfoSight can do for them, right now today you can go to infosight.hpe.com and take a look. It's a portal that you log into, and you'll start to get some cool insight on your array almost immediately.
Very nice. I didn't know that. That's cool. And then another question here about cloud backup. They mentioned that you had Scality on the one slide there. Is Scality someone you partner with, or is that an HP solution?
Scality is somebody that we partner with.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then last question here, they're asking, with so many different solutions being offered from HPE around storage, how do you guide customers to the right solution for their application?
Well, so it's We do have a broad portfolio, no doubt about that, but we really guide them based on what their needs are, right? So like going back to the slide where I talked about where we focus, right? And we focus on Nimble and 3PAR, and by and large, most customer requirements are going to be met with one of those products. We still have XP in our portfolio for those cases where, the highest levels of availability are required. But Nimble and 3PAR are probably our flagship flash arrays today. And like I said, we point customers who are looking for the flexibility in their array where they want to turn knobs and tune their system and really have that broadest set of software features or storage software features. We point them towards 3PAR. And then for customers like VM admins who are looking for that simplified experience because they don't want to have to manage storage at all, we'll point them towards Nimble. But then the most important thing is really understanding what the customer's needs are, right? So that's where our partners and our sales team will come into play.
Okay, excellent. Well, there's a few more questions for you there in the Q&A, but great presentation. Thank you so much for being on today.
Sure, thanks for having me.
All right, for more information about the HPE storage solutions, check out the brochure that's on your console there called Mind the Gap, How Application Delays Affect Company Performance. And of course, you can always visit the HPE website. All right, and it's now time for another prize drawing. We've got another drone to give away, and we also have a Amazon $500 gift card. So while I do that, I'm going to pop up this question one last time, and that is, would you be interested in being considered for participation in the Actual Tech Media Envoy program? If you say yes, then we will be contacting you with a survey to see if this is something that you might be interested in for sharing your IT solutions and feedback to enterprise technology companies. So the next prize drawing is going out to, this is for an Amazon $500 gift card, Mario Rabansky from Colorado. Congratulations. And congratulations to Gilbert Marlowe from South Carolina. You are the winner of an awesome Phantom Pro drone. Stay tuned. We've got another prize to give away. And before we do that, we have another excellent presenter on today's digital transformation event. I'm now excited to introduce Mr. AJ Gray and Rob Gerard. They are from Tintri. AJ and Rob, are you there?
We're here. Thanks, David.
Thanks for being on the event today. Take it away. Tell us about Tintri.
All right. Well, thank you again, David. Thank you again, Actual Tech Media, for having us on. Thanks to all of you guys for staying on. We're almost there. We're getting to the end. We're happy to be participating in the first virtual summit of the year. And I don't want to say that we saved the best for last, but I think we're going last. So, maybe it's a coincidence, maybe it's not. I'm AJ. I'm from the Tintri marketing team, and I'm here to talk to you about all-flash storage and software, but not just about IOPS and dollar per gigabyte. Let's focus on what really matters, how Tintri can maximize the performance of your applications and your people. Now, how about instead of me just giving you the marketing pitch, let's get into the nitty-gritty and bring you right into the product and our features. We have here Rob Gerard, who is going to give you a sample of Tintri and take you deep into SQL, Tintri Sync VM, and Tintri Snapshots. So Rob, take it away.
Thanks, AJ, and thanks Actual Tech Media for having us. My name is Rob Gerard, Principal Tech Marketing Engineer with Tintri. And thanks, AJ, and thanks Actual Tech Media for having us. My name is Rob Gerard, Principal Tech Marketing Engineer with Tintri. And today what I'd like to do is walk you through some illustration of running some SQL on us. I'm going to go through some our snapshots, show some Sync VM. And while this works for any workload, I focused on SQL because it can be sort of picky about consistency states and stuff. So if anybody has questions at all along the way, feel free to pop into the chat window, and we'll get back to you right away with answers. So without further ado, I'm going to just give a very brief overview of the Tintri VM store, but otherwise I'm going to assume that most of you have seen it before. So here is our overview of a VM store as a whole. This one's not very busy. I've only got 112 VMs on it. Our VM stores are capable of hundreds and thousands of virtual machines with about 7,500 on our largest all-flash unit, an EC6090. There's a good chance that you'll run out of performance or disk space before hitting that limit, but that will be easy to see because right here we've got two gas gauges. Green means go. So performance reserves, we've got some free performance reserves, and we've got free space, so we are good to add more VMs and more workload to this. Here's our real-time 10-second averages showing right now through here. These are the 10-minute averages in the past 7 days. So we've got not a lot of I/O going through, but just a bit of workload, throughput, and latency. And what we do is we break down latency, host, network, storage. Now, if I wanted to drive in a little deeper at the VM store level, right now I'm looking at a 2-day view of things. We can go back 7 days in the VM store view, or we can go 30 days with Tintri Global Center, or we can get a lot of telemetry from the last 3 years with our Tintri Analytics product. So this is quite helpful for looking through and seeing anything that stands out. So in this case, if I click at this point in time, we can see top contributors here were SQL HamDB 01 and 02. And we can see any latency that was on the box at this time. And what we can see here is that most of the latency was actually host and network latency. So this is the latency from when an I/O was issued all the way through the stack. Hits storage, goes back, and so we see these times here. And so not only do we see the time at the average of the VM store level, and again, we can click and see exactly who's doing what at whatever point in time, whatever latency they may be getting. But we can go in and we can see all the VMs, and we can easily sort by. Let me just get to an overview here and sort by something like latency. See what's of interest. And I can see that latency on this particular one, SQL HamDB 01, is running low. I can see any kind of latency. This is one called DB-Aware Demo 1. We've got 0.2 milliseconds of storage latency. We've got another one here. We've got 0.1 milliseconds of network, 0.1 of storage. So nice low latency. And we can see every individual VM and what they're doing. So what I want to focus on today are two SQL servers called SQL HamDB 01 and HamDB 02. So on these particular ones, I'm running a workload called, I used one called HammerDB, and I just populated these servers with some databases. So if I go over to the two servers, this is HamDB 01, and this is HamDB 02. I've got a database here called TPCC 5000. And this database, if I look at properties of it, is just shy of 500 gigs in size. So as databases go, I wouldn't say this is overly large. I also wouldn't say that it's tiny. Your database may be a couple gigs, might be tens, hundreds of gigs, tens, even hundreds of terabytes. It doesn't matter how big these are because the operations I'm going to show you apply at the file level and will refresh with the exact same speed. So what I want to do is show you a workflow of taking this database and giving it off to my test environment. So that would be SQL HamDB 02. And so if I look at SQL HamDB 02, it's got a database on there that's called TPCC 5000 refreshed from prod. And if I were to just jump into that and go into a table, and I go to this customer table and do a select on it, what I'm looking for is to see, what data has been updated or not, and if it needs to be updated. And so if I go back to my source here, and I do a refresh or a select on it, in this case, I want to go to my tables, take the same table. I'm actually going to do an edit on it. And I can see here that March 22nd at 9:13, original data updated March 19th. That's some of the data that's in here. And it looks to me like this is very much the same data over on that other side from the last time it's been refreshed. So now let's update this to March 28th. And let's just put this in here at 10:30. Oops, 10:30 a.m. And we can edit more data. And even though I've just edited a few bits, the process is actually going to take all the files and all the vdisks, and I'm going to move them over into that other VM and show it that way. So if I just go back to my other one here and I do a refresh on this, I'm just going to execute the select query again to show you that the data, in fact, is not changed because I've not updated that one yet. And I can also go through and connect to it in the same manager here. So I'm going to connect to HamDB02 and go down to that database and look at the one that's been refreshed from prod, although I haven't refreshed it yet. Tables, and do a select on this. Right? We can see that, again, it's the same data. We've not refreshed it yet. So if I go back to my source, and I'll just do one more edit here. One more edit and data change. Okay, so now over on the VM store side of things, I have a snapshot policy on HamDB01. And if I look at that, I can see that the protection policy that's currently on it, it's set to do it every 30 minutes at 5 minutes and 35 minutes past the hour. Every day, hold those for 12 hours. And I also got a daily in there every 2:30. And I've got flexibility to put some weekly, monthlies, quarterly. I also have flexibility to replicate those to several destinations. But in this case, I'll just leave it as is. And I'm just going to take a new snapshot that's not in the schedule because I just made the change. But normally, any of those snaps would contain, the latest data from now or from 10 minutes ago. So I'm just going to say take a snap, and this is going to be actual tech demo. And I'm just going to do a crash consistent. I'll do a whole VMworld session on crash consistent versus app consistent. So I don't want to get into the depth of it right now because it takes about an hour to fully dive into explain. But in our case, we've got write order preservation and consistency across the entire file system. So we're going to get a nice clean SQL snap on this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say take that snap, and if I go and look at the snaps on this particular VM, it's very easy, very laid out. They're just, there they are. These are the name of the VM, when it was taken. I can add fields to this as well, such as the expires. And I can add things like clone count as well. So the clone count might be there if I've used any of these snaps to clone a new VM. So let's just go back here. So what I want to do is I want to refresh SQL HamDB02 right now. And I want to do it from HamDB01. So let's go into it, and we'll say, under the Synchronize menu, we'll say Refresh Virtual Disks. Now my source VM is going to be SQL HamDB01, so we select that. Here's all the snapshots I can choose from, and I'm just going to scroll down to that latest one, Actual Tech Demo that I just created. And then the drop down in all of these is going to be all of the vdisks at that point in time of my source VM. So in this case, I've added a SCSI 3.14 and 15 as my placeholder for this refresh from prod database. And what I want to do is I want 3.14 to represent SCSI 1.0, which is where I hold the data, the MDF files on my production server. And 3.15 I want to be 1.1. And this is going to be where my logs are held. So this one is 1,000 gigs in size, and this is 301 gigs in size. I'm going to hit refresh. Now, I forgot to click the suppress restart, so my target machine will now be restarted. And if I go over to vCenter and take a look at that one, what I will see is that we have the power off operation. And now at this point, the disks, the contents of the disks have just been changed. So we didn't actually reconfigure the VM. We just changed the disks, and if we look, it's now coming back up. It will be up in just 1 second. Nice thing about VMs is that they boot up nice and fast, not like waiting for the BIOS post startups. And we are ready to go, and I can go and I can log into this guy. But in order of time, I've already connected to it on our other one. So I just want to do a select on this same table, and we should see our data is updated. And we can see here that March 28th, 10:30 a.m., edit, more data, one more edit. And here we can see that we've just refreshed this. Now this database, just to show you where it lives, is over on this system that I'm connected to. We have the did not shut down properly thing that Windows shows us. And I'm just going to open up SQL Management Studio, and I'm going to connect to this particular instance. And this is the reason that I showed you that the database was already available from the application perspective, because it was available very quickly, but navigating to it takes longer than the actual operation. And we can see here, here's that database. I can go to tables, and I can do my select, and we'll validate that, yes, it is in fact been updated. Now, this is great. So this is, here's about 600 gigs worth of data that has just been moved from one system to another, and it's been done very fast and is ready to go. Now, underneath this, if we look at our disks, we have a local disk where I keep my data on this server is on E and F. And then the ones that came over from the other were the M and N drives. And this is where data, and this is where my MDF sits. So as long as when I do this operation, that file name comes over and is there, then my database that's already been set up to look at this drive is going to work. Now, if I wanted to get use SyncVM to do some recovery or leverage these snapshots, I could also take a look at what did that what did that database look like before the change. So let's just walk through that. We'll go over to the one that I had just updated here. The operation was successful. We got to synchronize, and I want to restore VMs or files. I want to say a guest OS file. So what I'm going to do is take all the vDisks that belong to this particular VM at this point in time, or the point of time that I choose. Now, when I do that operation, we always create a safety snapshot. And that's because we don't want you to accidentally overwrite your data because you chose the wrong object. Now, anything that I'm showing you here, even though I'm using the UI, we can do it through APIs with REST APIs. We have PowerShell Toolkit Wrapper, Python Toolkit Wrapper for it. So we can easily script these things so you can refresh these things nightly or on weekends or however you want. So in this case, I'm going to add all those vDisks from this point in time, and it's automatically going to remove them in 48 hours. And just before I hit OK on this, I just want to show you what this source VM looks like. Edit settings, and we can see that there's 11 disks on it. Now, when I go back to that operation and I say restore, we're going to wait for a few seconds, restore in progress. On the vCenter side, I'm going to see a single reconfigure operation. It's already been done. I go back to my VM itself. And, whoops, edit settings on this. And what we can see is that we just added all 11 disks one more time. But when we added them this time, we added them independent, non-persistent. That prevents us from snapshotting on the Tintri VM store. It prevents data from accumulating on this. We'll be lost on power off, but we're actually going to detach it and throw these out after 48 hours. And it also prevents popular backup programs such as Veeam or Commvault from going through and including these disks in their backup. So it'll exclude them if they're independent, non-persistent. So in the VM itself, that operation is non-interruptive. We can do it to production systems without any issues. I want to go in, I want to go to disk management here. And I'm going to see that I've got 11 disks that are online with my standard drives. And I'm going to go down and find some of the ones that were added and they're offline. So this is the one that was my data at 1,000 gigs. I'm going to bring it online. And it's going to know the name of this and give it a drive letter. So the name was based on what it looked like on the source side, HamDB 01. And this one's my logs, HamDB 01. So we'll bring it online. And we can see that it was assigned the O and the P drive. And just to see what that looks like from an Explorer perspective, here were my original drives, my M and N, and I can see my O and my P, and I can go in here and I can access whatever I want. So I want to go access the MDF and the LDF for the database. So let's just go back to SQL here. Database, we're going to attach. We're going to add a file. We're going to look in the O drive data and point to this file here. TBCZ 5000 MDF. And here, when the files come up, we want to attach as, instead of refresh from prod, which was the original name, I'm just going to call it recovery. And what I need to do is that the MDF held the location of the LDF, and so the original location was on the N drive, but I want to update it to the P drive because that is the one that corresponds to the backup time, the snap time that we took. Logs, and I find the corresponding log file, hit OK. And I hit OK on this. And now I'm just going to expand this guy. Go to tables, find that table that I had edited, the customer data. And we're going to just go into customer and do a select on this. And what we can see is here was the data before. And again, looking at the what it was updated to, March 28th. So now if we wanted, we could write a query. We could take a look at these operations, and we can see any differences between these databases. So it's that easy to get at a add a snapshot to recover stuff. Doesn't matter. And then when we detach our disks, which will happen automatically, or we can manually go and detach them when we're done, we'll see them be removed here. So let's just hop into the VM store. We'll go in here, we'll go down. Now we have this detach option. This never showed up. This is because we were doing that file level recovery. We hit detach, we say detach. Now when we attached them, it was one operation that reconfigured it, and it added them all at once. But this time, we're actually going to detach it, and we're going to remove them one at a time. And that's so that Windows doesn't freak out inside. And if I'm in Disk Manager, and I take a look at this, what I'll see is that these drives are going to start disappearing underneath me here. It's not disruptive to what I'm doing, and now we've just recovered the data that we want. So this was just a simple operation. I know I only changed a few bits of data, but I could have rewritten the entire table with terabytes of change, and the operation would take the exact same amount of time. So I want to thank you, and
all right. Thanks, Rob. David, are you there?
I am here. Yeah, great presentation, Rob.
Thank you.
So we do have some questions here for you from the audience. Are you ready?
Sure thing.
All right. So where does the Tintry's storage product line, where does it start for some of the SMB, the smaller companies that are on the event today?
So our T1000 is our smallest unit. This is a 2U all-flash box. Has just a little less than 2 terabytes of worst case usable capacity. And then when you get your dedupe and compression in there, this goes upwards from there, all the way up to our EC6090, which is the largest in our lineup. Again, it's just a 2U all-flash box. Effectively has about 600 terabytes in it, and it's capable of running up to about 7,500 VMs. The space savings factors that we use for our marketing numbers are a 5x. So if you're not sure about which if your data would look like that or not, then you can just divide by 5 and then give it a different space savings factor. So 3x on an all-flash would be fairly conservative, keep you pretty safe. The compression alone on things like databases and stuff usually range between the 1.3 and 1.7x.
Okay, all right, nice. Another question here, they're saying they use Veeam right now for backup and recovery. They're asking if Tintry is compatible with Veeam storage or Veeam backup.
Absolutely. If you go to our website, we have a Veeam best practice guide written specifically for running Veeam on Tintry. So we support the Veeam Direct NFS. So that is higher performance backup and without the stun times. So that is the preferred way to do it. This is what's configured, and it's all covered in that guide. And we're looking to do closer integration now that the storage side APIs to integrate with snapshots and such have been delivered, are available for vendors to write their own stuff. Prior, it was Veeam who had to write it, and now that this has opened up a bit more, it gives us more options going forward. For Commvault, we just announced last week that we've got a snapshot integration with that, so it's all tied right into the product now.
Very nice, very nice. Another question here, they're asking, what is it about Tintri that makes it especially good for VDI? I've heard that a lot as well.
Yeah, so I mean, the same thing that makes it good for VDI makes it good for server workloads, and that is you have a lot of virtual machines that would otherwise get lost in a shuffle. And so when somebody, Bob over in accounting tells you, hey, it's slow, well, what do you mean it's slow? Well, just can you give me an example? And instead of having him named at a time and then try and figure everything out, we can go see what VM he's on, look at the history of his VM, look at his individual latencies, host network storage, and we may see that it's host latency. We could quickly drill down and find out that it's a factor of like percent ready time, that there's too many VMs on that host. And then when we distribute the VMs out to more hosts, and in VDI in particular, it's usually pretty distributed well with TRS. So we can just add a new host to that cluster, and we should see the benefits show up by that host latency disappearing. So seeing issues that are not specific to storage is huge, because VDI is if you've ever run it at any scale or done any testing with like login VSI, it can be tough to pinpoint what's happening, and if the metrics you have are for a data store that holds all of everything, those averages are going to blind you from the spikes of individual vDisks and individual VMs.
Excellent. Let's see, a question here from James. He's asking, how large does Tintri scale up to? Is there anything greater than a petabyte?
Yeah, so we have something we call VM Scale-Out that is part of our Tintri Global Center Advanced. So Tintri Global Center can monitor and manage up to 64 of our VM stores. So when you're putting in those big guys in there, those EC6090s, that's 600 effective terabytes times your 64, we're going to get some pretty massive numbers. So yeah, we definitely go up into the petabytes. We can manage at scale with this single pane of glass through our global center. We can see who the top contributors are. We see trending for all the VMs going out 3 years with our analytics. So yeah, anything at scale, if that thing moves between VM stores, we're still going to see the 30 days of history. We move it between VM stores with Storage vMotion Offload, which we just introduced earlier this year. So that, that offload's huge because you're not reading all these zeros from all your provision space, which you would have to do if that was not offloaded. And we also don't have to push the I/O through a host to do that. We can go VM store to VM store on a dedicated replication network that can be 10 or 40 gig.
Very nice. Another question here, what's the best way to get some hands-on experience with Tintri? I mean, I know for me personally, I've used the try.tintri.com, the live web demo, but what do you all recommend?
So definitely you can go to our website, kind of get a flavor of it, but that's kind of scripted and you can only click in certain spots. We have Live Labs that is not available to the public. However, we can get you into that. So we can get you in touch with any of the account teams in your geo, have a chat with them. They'd be happy to demo to you. If you wanted the hands-on stuff, we could get you an account. You could get in there. Looks very much like the hands-on lab that VMware has. It's really nice, responsive. The downside is that we use virtual VM stores in there, so the latency numbers you're going to see in there are not representative of physical hardware. But you'll still be able to hit it with any APIs, test things you want, do SRM testing, all kinds of things. And yeah, and it's your own sandbox, so it can be destructive as you want with it. And then if you've got real workloads that you want to try, we'd be happy to set you up with a proof of concept. Get one of our boxes in your data center. Get your workloads onto it. You'll absolutely love it. Talk to any of our customers. I'm a former customer. I was a customer since early 2012. Love the stuff so much that over 4 years ago, I moved over to Mountain View to be part of this. So yeah, it is one of those things that you won't appreciate the features unless you didn't have them. But articulating how beneficial they are is really tough, and it's really your own experience that you would find really quickly. This is some pretty powerful stuff.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Rob. Thank you, AJ. A great
Thank you, David.
Thanks for being on the event today. For more information on Tintri, visit their website, tintri.com. They also have a great resource available for download there on the console, the Essential Guide to Storage for Virtualization. So make sure you check that out as well. All right, with that, it's now time to give away our final prize, and or set of prizes, I should say. And while I do that, I'm going to pop up this final poll question. Just leave that on the screen. So we've got another set of prizes, the first of which is an Amazon $500 gift card. That's going out to Lee Hodge from North Carolina. And then our final drone number 6, is going out to Steve Lurie from Illinois. Congratulations, Steve and Lee. And before we wrap up, I want to remind everyone you can check out our podcast, the 10 on Tech podcast, over on iTunes. If you subscribe to that, you'll get some really cool podcast episodes with some interviews of enterprise technology visionaries. And then also you can register for all of our events over at events.actualtechmedia.com. Our MegaCast and EcoCast series is ongoing every month. Our next event, in fact, is going to be on disaster recovery as a service and ransomware, and it's coming up April 5th. Wow, that is next week. We'll be hosting Unitrends, KnowBe4, Infrascale, and perhaps some others on that event. So make sure you stay tuned for that. If you don't have an invite already, visit events.actualtechmedia.com. Thanks for joining us on today's Digital Transformation Summit from Actual Tech Media. We appreciate your time. Hope you learned a lot, and have a great day. Bye-bye.